IB Nation, welcome to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It's Friday, so that means it is Friday free for all time, and it's going to be a little solo show today, so y'all are stuck with me today. So I apologize in advance, but I'm going to do my best to give you guys great answers to your great questions. And since there's really not a lot going on in Notre Dame Nation, I'm sure we can just go ahead and dive into the questions. So I want to kick the questions off immediately. I'm sure there's going to be questions that about what happened yesterday and everything going on, but I'm ready to talk about everything. And I'd rather just move on from some of the other stuff. But if you guys want to talk about it, then we can go ahead and talk about it. So I'm gonna get started here with we got a super chat from Sean S. Unable to watch live much, miss it. Thanks for the endless content you guys provide. IB is elite. By the way, with baseball upon us, Ryan Trey Turner is your doppelganger. That is all. Go Irish. Sean, thank you very, very much for that. I'm very, speaking of Notre Dame, because I don't watch much Major League Baseball, but speaking of Notre Dame baseball, I'm actually really excited to see what they're going to be under Coach Stifler. Obviously, Link Jarrett did a tremendous job at Notre Dame, and I'm hoping that Coach Stifler can keep that thing rolling. So, yeah, I used to get really excited for baseball season. That stopped last 5-6 years, I guess. But I used to get so excited when pitchers and catchers would report, start getting my fantasy baseball draft stuff ready, and I don't really do a whole lot of that anymore. But I am very curious to see how Notre Dame's baseball team does this year. So move on to the next question. We got another super chat from Hulk Strongest. It says, why does it sound like Tyler has no chance to win the starting job? Do you guys believe he could win it? I mean, we've never said he has no chance. They didn't bring Sam Hartman in to sit the bench, right? And the issue with Tyler is not talent, it's not ability, it's not potential, it's just health and development. And I think with with Gino Guidugli coming in and Jared Parker coming in, I don't see any reason why Tyler Buckner won't have the same opportunity start that he would have had before. It's just really about staying healthy, staying focused, staying motivated, and just going out there and being the best of that he can be on a daily basis. And let the chips fall where they may. Does he have a chance? Yeah, but I mean, it's going to be a quarterback battle, but it's one where they brought Sam Hartman in to win the job. I mean, they didn't bring Sam Hartman in to sit. Doesn't mean it's a guarantee he's going to play, but I'll say this: I don't really care who starts a quarterback. I think both guys have a chance to be really good football players. If Sam Hartman starts, Notre Dame's offense is going to be really good. If he gets beat out by Tyler Buckner, then Notre Dame's offense is going to be really good. But like I said, it would be disingenuous of me to sit there and act as if it's going to be a quarterback battle like we've seen in the past. Just like I said it about last year, it wasn't a real quarterback battle. That was Tyler Buckner's job to lose, and he didn't until he got hurt. So I think it'll be somewhat similar this year, although I would say Tyler Buckner has a better chance of beating out Sam Hartman than Drew Pine had to beat out Tyler Buckner, in my opinion. Got another question here from Quinn Kibler. Says, do you think Sam Hartman will earn a C on his jersey? Seems like his gym rat mentality has put him in the conversation. Who else do you see as being captains? It's possible he could do that. Certainly possible. He was a captain of Wake Forest, and your quarterback is a lot of times your team leader. They may decide they don't want to go that route. They may decide to say, hey, look, we're going to have guys that have been here before be captains. I don't know who those guys would be. To be completely honest with you, I would imagine, Joe Walt, Blake Fisher might have a shot to be captain. Zeke Correll have a shot to be a captain. There's going to be other guys that have an opportunity to be captains, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if Sam Hartman did it. But I honestly don't care either. I mean, I look at it like this: is you put a C on his chest. Okay, great. It looks good. But when they're on the field, he's the captain of the offense anyway. It doesn't really matter. So I don't really care if there's a C on his jersey or not. I just want him to be a leader, and you don't need a C to be a leader. I have a super chat from Brian Richmond. Speaking of baseball, what is your wife's fascination with our Reds? She has a bunch of fans on staff now at Notre Dame. I'm not quite sure. What is it with our Reds? She has a bunch of fans on staff now at Notre Dame. I don't quite know what you're talking about, Brian. I don't know that my wife cares much about the Cincinnati Reds at all. Yeah, I'm not quite, Brian. I'm not quite sure. I really don't know what you're talking about, to be completely honest with you. You don't mind filling me in? I get the Cincinnati Reds, but my wife doesn't have a fascination with the Cincinnati Reds. So, unless you like went to her Facebook profile and saw the picture of it, she just wore that. It was like an opening day, and we got a new TV. We had actually gotten broken into, and she set up the new TV when we got a new one to replace it, and we were watching like opening day, something like that, I think. But other than that, I don't think she really has much of a fascination with the Reds. She doesn't really follow baseball. Tyler Evans with a super chat. He says, with Gino being thank you, Tyler, with Gino being our new quarterbacks coach, what did you like in Cincinnati with Desmond Ritter? And is there other quarterbacks he coached? He coached Ben Bryant this year. He was okay. Kid that transferred from what Eastern Michigan. But I mean, coach Desmond Ritter for 4 years, and he was the quarterbacks coach from 18 to 21, and that's during Desmond Ritter's tenure. He was the running backs coach in 2017. You know what I liked about what I saw from him with Desmond Ritter is I saw a guy that was very raw, very athletic, had a um, very long, awkward release coming out of high school. Strong arm, bad footwork, good athlete, but not a real refined quarterback. And just over time, got him more and more and more refined mechanically. But even when he wasn't refined mechanically, he was able to have success. I mean, when you look at his production over the years at Cincinnati, I mean, Gino Guidugli ended his Cincinnati career as the school's all-time leader in completions, attempts, passing yards, touchdowns, and total offense. Well, the guy that passed him up for passing touchdowns and the guy that passed him up for total offense was Desmond Ritter, the guy that he coached. So even when he was not necessarily the most, say, fundamentally sound quarterback, he just kept working with him on being a better decision maker. And I think that's the thing that changed for Desmond a lot as a senior was he became a much better decision maker. I was never the biggest Desmond Ritter fan. I think he was a very raw quarterback, not the most natural thrower in the world, in my opinion. But as a senior, he completed 64.9% of his passes. He was like over 65% his last 2 years, which for a kid like him is pretty good, in my opinion. He was 8.6 yards per 8.6 yards per attempt, 30 touchdowns and 8 picks, and a 158.7 passer rating, which is really, really good. So, I mean, for a guy that I don't view as a real natural passer, I think he got a lot out of him. And that's what I liked about what I saw from him at Cincinnati. John A1 with a question. He says, based on what you're hearing so far, do you have confidence that Marcus Freeman and Gerald Parker will land a top O-line coach going into the 2023 season? It's early yet. I mean, the lists I've seen about guys they're doing a national search, right? I mean, and I think that's real. I think that's a situation where, I mean, I think Coach Freeman has some guys that he likes, but he also understands that the nature of this position puts the offense and the staff in position to go out and shoot maybe for the moon. Obviously, Chris Watt will be a candidate. I think he will be a real candidate, but I honestly don't know. I have confidence that they're going to do it because so far his offensive hires from a position coach standpoint have been pretty good, and hopefully that continues. I mean, look, Chancey Stuckey was a good hire. Jared Parker as a tight ends coach was a good hire. Dylan McCullough was a great hire. Harry was a great hire. Tommy Reese leaves. He hires Gino Guidugli. I think that was a good hire. So offensively, he's made some good hires so far, and I hope that continues the offensive line. I know there's going to be a lot of good coaches that want the job. We'll see what direction he goes. Let's see the next question here. I'm going to go to another one from John A1. Which college programs has conference realignment in the modern era hurt the most? Nebraska, Colorado, West Virginia, Miami, Pittsburgh, or other? I would throw Penn State in there, to be honest with you. I think Penn State's a team that I look at and say, I think they've become less of a national brand and more of just a regional team when it comes to when they join the Big Ten. I don't think the Big Ten is the reason for Pitt's struggles. I think Pitt's struggles are their own, or the ACC is the reason for Pitt's struggles. I think their issues are they don't commit to the program financially. They play in an NFL stadium that rarely sells out. They don't have the on-campus support that they need to be successful. I think that's about them. I think West Virginia being in a conference has really not done a lot to hurt them. I mean, they've had some good years. I think the issue with West Virginia has been more about just bad hires. I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, when Coach Nealon was there, they had that year in 1988. Obviously, they went 11-1, and then 1993. It's funny when Notre Dame had their two best teams in the whole year. Also, West Virginia, great teams, but they had that team in '93. I think Jake Kelchner was the quarterback who began his career at Notre Dame. But outside of that, you look at Don Nealon's career. I mean, there's a lot of 8-9 win seasons, but there's not a lot of great years. And so I don't think that anything that they've done, since then has kind of been conference related. I think they had that stretch with Rich Rodriguez where they were very good being in the Big East. I don't think going to the Big 12 necessarily hurt them and kept them from being competitive, because I think West Virginia could have been competitive if they would have made better hires. Replacing Rich Rod with Bill Stewart was a bad hire, in my opinion, and I don't mean any disrespect. And I know he's passed away, so I don't mean any disrespect. Dana Holgerson did some good things at West Virginia. He had a 10-win season, but he just couldn't really take him to the Rich Rod level because he's just not that kind of coach. But I think that was more about Dana Holgerson than it was them being in that conference. I mean, he hasn't exactly lit the world on fire in the AAC at Houston either. So I don't think he's a great head coach. And then Neil Brown has been a bad hire so far, in my opinion. So I think that's the issue more than anything else, as opposed to being in a conference. I think the first two that you mentioned, Miami, again, I don't think Miami's problems are being in the ACC. If Miami supported football and hired better coaches, Miami would be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the ACC. I think that what's hurt Miami is the lack of institutional support, the lack of just embracing the tradition from the institution. I think it has been Florida is not, it's just a different animal now. Kids are more willing to leave than they used to be when they just kind of stayed there. But again, it's a school that's made some really bad coaching hires. And I think that's done them in. I think going to the 2 schools besides Penn State that I think have been hurt most by conference realignment is Nebraska and Colorado. There may be somebody up top. I think A&M. I think it's hurt. A&M is another team I would throw in there. I think A&M would be much more competitive if they were in the Big 12. But I think Nebraska and Colorado, because it took their identity away and it took all their rivalries away, and it put them in conferences where people just didn't care about them. And I think it hurt them both. I think it hurt Nebraska more, but I think issues that have happened there are, again, bad coaching hires. But even if you have the right coach at Nebraska, I don't think their prestige is the same. Being a Big Ten team, they'll never be on Ohio State's level as a program. I'm not talking wins and losses. I'm talking about as a program, tradition and all those kind of things. Now you've got USC coming into the mix. It cheapens things for them, or it hurts things even more for them. And they're not a Big Ten team. So I think that's hurt them. And then I think the same thing with Colorado. If I was the Big 12, I don't know if it's possible, but I would do everything that I could imagine, that I could, maybe strings I could pull to try to get those 2 teams into the conference, because I think it would help that conference quite a bit. It would give them 2 name programs. It would give them one decent sized market in Denver for Colorado, and give them a chance to kind of reestablish some of the tradition that was lost with the teams that have lost. Because remember, Texas was in the Big 12, but they didn't join that conference until like the 90s. They were a Southwest Conference team for a long time, and so, like, when you look at, like, when Nebraska was in the Big 8 conference, before it became the Big 12, it was Nebraska, it was Colorado, it was Kansas State, it was Iowa State, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. Texas wasn't in there. And then when the Southwest Conference kind of blew up and some of those teams went to the SEC, then you saw them kind of bring in Texas and Baylor and TCU, eventually TCU and teams like that. And so Texas doesn't have that same Big 12 tradition. These are 2 OGs of the Big 12, the Big 8, and eventually the Big 12. And I think not being in that conference hurt them. But hey, it's their own fault. They made money decisions to join other leagues, and their programs have suffered because of it. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. But I have sympathy for college football because we lost some great rivalries and more, just, I don't know, more balance from a traditional standpoint in these leagues. I have a super sticker here from Driscoll's Intel Poker Face. I appreciate that very, very much. He did reach out to me yesterday, said it's not done in any negative way. I still thought it was funny, even if it was. I think it's hilarious. So I appreciate that very, very much. I have a question from Brandon Plesner. Does Notre Dame have an associate head coach or assistant head coach on staff? I do not believe so, Brandon. I'm gonna look up the coaching staff right now. Mike Elson held that role previously, but I don't know that Notre Dame has that. At least it's not anything that I've noticed. Just let me go down to the coaches here, and they do not. Al Washington's just the run game coordinator, receivers coach, tight ends coach, D backs, safeties, corners, running backs. Joe Moore, offensive line coach, special teams coordinator, D coordinator, linebackers, and head football coach. So no, I don't think they had an assistant head coach. I think that's something that you could maybe see them use to, maybe get a guy to come in or keep somebody to stay to get them a pay raise. So that's still out there for them to be able to utilize. Good question. We have one from God, Country, and Notre Dame. This looks like a two-parter. So part one says, paraphrasing, of course, but you guys talk about Jared Parker as being a high energy guy and his players want to run through a wall for him. That kind of reminds me of Brian Mason. Can you compare coaching styles of Jared Parker and Brian Mason? If Notre Dame's offense has similar buy-in than special teams, I have to think that Notre Dame will be just fine. Thanks. They're pretty different guys right now, and so I mean their personalities are different. Brian Mason, if I could kind of describe it based on what people have said to me, he's kind of like that mad scientist kind of guy where he's a little awkward when you're just kind of talking to him, but tons of energy, great coach, really wicked smart, and kids respect him and play hard for him and all those type of things. Jared Parker is a little bit more of I mean, he's a former Division One football player. He's got a little bit of like that kind of energy to him, like former player energy to him, as opposed to just the ball of exploding energy that Brian Mason can be at times. But they're different in a lot of different ways. But I think the core principle is that they do things in mostly a positive way, and they'll get on you. They'll be demanding, but it's in a positive way. It's in a setting expectations, and nothing's good enough for me yet. You got to do better. You got to do better. You got to do better, but not in a like a demeaning way or a really angry type of way. It doesn't mean it won't get after you, but it's just a different type of mentality. Look, I haven't been given the okay to share this yet. I was hoping to be able to read it today. I was talking to a former player, got some really interesting stuff about Jared Parker that I'm hoping to be able to share at some point in time. But look, everything that I've been told about Jared Parker, again, I don't know what kind of coordinator is going to be, but this is a move that the offensive players are going to like, and they're gonna appreciate this, and not a shot at Tommy Reese, but just more about Jared Parker. They like him, they respect him, they like the way he goes about his business. They love the energy he brings to the table, and they respect his football mind. Now we'll see if he can do all the other things that go into being a coordinator, organization, making sure everybody's on the same page, coaching wise and player wise, formulating practice plans, and not just each week, but just your structure of, okay, here's what our objectives are for the spring. And this is going to lead into what we want them to work on in the winter, or excuse me, summer. Then this is what our objectives are going into fall camp. And you've got to look ahead too, to say, hey, look, we're building towards something, and what's your plan from now, February 17th to the beginning of spring, and then what's your plan from there to get through spring, and then what's your plan for the summer, and then what's your plan, and it's all building towards the next level. And if you don't have a cohesive plan to build to each stage, then it's just a bunch of garbled stuff. I mean, it's really, there's really no plan for it. And so I think that in that instance, it's not going to be effective. So can he do those things? I don't know. Do the players have any clue if he can do that thing? No, not really, because he's never done it. But in a lot of the other things, the intelligence, the energy, the support, the attention to detail, all those things that I like, he's got all that. Now it's just about the other stuff that we can't really evaluate until he actually gets in that role and does that role. And that's what we'll find out over these next 9 months. Tyler Evans with a super chat. Thank you, Tyler. What went wrong at West Virginia for Parker? Also, who is under more pressure this upcoming season, Parker or Freeman? Well, it's always Freeman. It's always the head coach. Because if Parker doesn't have success, Freeman gets blamed. And I would throw Jack Swarbrick in that conversation as well. But I think Freeman and Jack Swarbrick are the ones who's going to get more blame for that than Jared Parker. What went wrong at West Virginia was Neil Brown is what went wrong. I mean, Ryan and I have done a lot of digging on this since the moment we first heard Jared Parker's name about possibly coming on staff. And essentially him and Neil Brown butted heads. Neil Brown wanted the offense to be run one way. Jared Parker wanted to have it run the other way. And of course, being a good soldier, comes a point in time you say, okay, this is what you want. This is what we're going to do. And then when you look at what West Virginia did after he left, I think another issue at West Virginia, Ryan's talked to Jarrett Day. I can't remember how to pronounce it, the kid that transferred from Bowling Green. And he's a great kid, I'm sure, but not a really good quarterback, in my opinion. And they didn't really have much of a jump this year. When you look at their overall scoring, they went from about 25 points a game to 30 points a game. A lot of that had to do with a couple games where they had some high numbers. Overall, they didn't finish very well. Their yards improvement wasn't that much of a jump. They went from 371.5 to 399. They went from 5.4 per play to 5.5 per play. So there just wasn't a lot to do. A lot of improvement despite going from Jarrett to JT Daniels. So much better quarterback this year and still a mediocre offense. So I think the issue was Neil Brown. Now, am I going to say, well, I now know because it was Neil Brown's fault that Jared Parker's going to be a great coach? I don't know. I've said it multiple times. I had somebody get mad at me yesterday because they said, you said that Jared Parker's going to be an upgrade over Tom Rees. I literally have never said that. I said I don't know what kind of coach Jared Parker is going to be as an offense coordinator. I know he was a heck of a tight ends coach. He's a very good recruiter. Players respect him. I don't know what kind of offense coordinator he's going to be. I like a lot of things that he talks about, the things I've heard about him, but I got to see what he's going to do. So, and if he's not successful, a lot of it's going to fall on, hey, you're the head coach, you made the decision, and now you got to roll with it. So I think that's where the pressure lies this season for me. John A1 says, will a 23 Notre Dame offense be the ultimate measuring stick when it comes to scheme versus fundamentals debate of importance? Absolutely. Now, we've got to be careful. And if we're going to be objective and fair, we can't compare it to the 22 offense only and look at the numbers of the 22 offense only. I think that would be very disingenuous, if I'm going to be honest with you, because of all the injuries they had this season, because of the issues at quarterback and some of those other things. I wouldn't compare it to the 31 point per game as much offense as I would to the 35 point per game offense. So it's not going to be so much, John, the overall numbers. I think a big part of it for me is, can this offense play better in big games? Because that's something that's been an issue for years, going back to before Tommy Rees. So I think that's going to be the measuring stick for him is the success in those games, which is obviously scheme is important. But as I've been calling for years, John, which I think is at the heart of your question, and I know that you agree with me on this, is this team didn't always play with great sound. They weren't always a sound football team on offense. Really good scheme. NFL teams love what Tom Rees was doing. Nick Saban loved what Tom Rees was doing, obviously. But to me, the fundamentals weren't always there. And I don't put that as much on the offensive coordinator as I do the entire staff. What's interesting is this year's team was one of the more fundamentally sound units they've had at multiple positions. And so that's kind of the disappointment that I had about this season is I really feel like if Tyler Buchner doesn't get hurt, once he got into a groove, this offense was going to be really good. And unfortunately, we never got a chance to see that. Like, honestly, what we saw in the bowl game against South Carolina, I think we would have seen a lot of during the season if Tyler Buchner doesn't get hurt. So it's a little unfair to compare this year's team to next year's team in that regard, because I actually think that team was fundamentally sound in a lot of ways. They had some guys not stepping up and then major quarterback issues. I mean, and Ryan and I were talking about this the other day. Like, when you break down the film, and we felt this way during the season, but then when you break it down after the season, it is real. The issues the limitations they had at quarterback, man, I mean, to me, I just they were crippling in a lot of ways, so there just was not a lot they could do. And, you know, I think the offense would have been a lot better this year if the quarterback, if the core, because I think of what Tyler Buckner could have done by the middle of the season with when once the receiving core started playing better and guys started getting open. I think it'd have been a lot, and the offensive line started doing what they did. I think it'd have been a lot of fun to watch this offense, and it would have been a much better offense. Now the question is, can Jared Parker get it to that level where he can get that out of them? We'll find out. And I think we're going to like what we see from a fundamental standpoint, right? Because they're going to build on what they did this year, and as long as there's good health, your quarterback situation is going to be a lot better, which should allow the offense to take a big jump forward, in my opinion. Coach Bent 5 at 7-4 said, "What are some names that you would say are make or break are at the make or break point during spring practice?" Ooh, this is a good question, Coach. So for me, man, I like this one. So for me, when I look at this one, Coach, I think that for me, it's there are certain veterans that like Rocco Spindler, right? If he doesn't compete for a job and win a job this year, it's not going to happen because he's battling against younger players. Lorenzo Styles is one. If Lorenzo Styles doesn't break out this year and step up this year, he's going to get passed up by some really talented younger players. So, like offensively, those are guys that I look at. Ryan just texted me. Andrew Kristofics, another one, right? Like he again, same similar situation to Rocco Spindler. He's in a situation where he's battling younger players. If he gets beat out, it's not going to happen. And not even just getting beat out, but it's a make or break year for him, whether he's going to take that jump as a player. He's a steady guy, has been a steady guy at Notre Dame. Him and Alt being put in the lineup really helped solidify the offensive line in 2021. He just isn't a butt kicker. And I think his one start, it was kind of he got thrown into a buzzsaw against Ohio State. And so I'm hoping he can take that jump. But if the jump doesn't come, then it's just not going to come. It's not coming. And I would look at tight end. I think it's a big season for Kevin Bauman because he's going to get passed up by some younger guys if he doesn't have a big offseason going into the spring. Defensively, I think it's a big offseason for Jordan Patelho. Like he's going to be a senior next year, and he's got 2 years of eligibility left. But is this a year where he comes out and finally becomes that guy, or does he get pushed and challenged by younger guys like Josh Burnham and Junior Tuihalamaka and Naden Gobira? I think it's a big year for him. It's a huge year for Maris Luafau. At least it should be. Now, I don't know if he's going to be allowed to be challenged because I don't know what Al Golden's going to do. He may just keep trotting the veterans out there because they know the offense, defense, or whatever. But to me, Maris Luafau is a guy that to me has to have a great spring. If he doesn't, then you got to start thinking about it's time to move on to somebody else. Another guy, somebody mentioned in the chat, Clarence Lewis. Jay Wick said that. I think it is a big one for Clarence Lewis, but in a different way. I think for me, it's about, do they finally make the move that in reality they should have made with him in the past, but couldn't because they didn't have the depth of cornerback. I hope that they make that move for him. And so it's more about that than it is about, Clarence is playing his butt off. He's playing as well as he can at corner. I don't know how much better he's going to get at corner, but I would love to see him finally get that chance of safety because I think that could be a big jump. But if you don't do it this offseason, I don't know that you're going to do it next offseason. So it's a little bit of a different situation, but he's one that I would throw into that conversation as well. So, yeah, very, very good questions. Brandon Plensner says, was Notre Dame or the relationship with Stuckey a big factor in Jason Robinson's decommitment to your knowledge? Yes, very much so. Ryan and I, and so I'm speaking for Ryan here since he's not in the show today. He's actually emceeing things because he's had a little family issue today, so he can't be on camera. But we talked last night. So Jason Robinson, obviously, is the 2024 wide receiver from California, from Poly, Long Beach Poly. Was committed to USC for a while, has visited Notre Dame, visited this winter with his brother. Things went really well. And there's actually an article out today, and we'll have another one out tomorrow. Today's one talked about just the decommitment. And the one I'm going to put up later today is going to be about just kind of Notre Dame and some other aspects of it. But Chancey Stuckey, they're a family I think talking with Ryan, they're a family that's really faith oriented. And Chancey Stuckey is like a former pastor. And if you go into Chancey's office, he's got this is what they had relayed. He's got like Bible verses and things like that. They've talked to players about the relationship with Coach Stuckey. They raved about it and how he's a genuine guy, has them over to the house, really looks out for the players, things along those lines. That's played a big role in this recruitment for Jason Robinson and other players. And it's part of the reason Coach Stuckey has been able to have the success he's had in recruiting so far, despite not really having much of a track record. So, yes, I think Chancey Stuckey's played a big factor. I wouldn't say it played a big factor in the decommitment in regard to like Coach Stuckey saying, you got to decommit, you got to decommit, you got to decommit. More so, that kind of relationship, along with other schools, has kind of opened up his eyes and his mind to maybe I need to rethink where I'm going to look. So I don't think it's directly related to the decommitment, but I think it played a big role in that he realizes there's some other stuff out there. So very good question, Brandon. Got a super chat from Beef Eater. This is Brian Long Week, so I'm going to tell the worst clean joke I've ever heard. What did the farmer say when he lost his tractor? Ah, where's my tractor? All right. That's pretty terrible. That is pretty terrible, but you paid for it, so I'm going to read it. So I appreciate that. Brian Richmond with super chat. Thank you, Brian. I sincerely stick to these last 10 minutes, BD, on IB as well. We are fine. We will be great. Fortunate as heck to have the people we have now. Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I am cautiously optimistic that Marcus Freeman's going to be able to have a lot of success. And when you look at it, we're going to get proven right or wrong on that real quick. And I think there's really good people running things at Notre Dame within the football program. There's some important hires he's got to make, but I'm in a much better place. I feel much more confident now with some of the things going on than I would have in the past. And we'll just have to see if that faith is misguided or not here very soon. So we'll find out. But thank you for the super chat, Brian. I appreciate that very, very much. John A1, Turkey Club versus the BLT versus the corned beef Reuben. So my wife would definitely take the BLT or the Reuben ahead of the Turkey Club. I don't like BLTs and I don't like Reuben. So part of I don't like that type of meat. For the Reuben, the BLT, I don't like tomato. So I just, whatever. I'm a Turkey Club guy, but I've said this before. I'm a picky eater. Like as far as I don't put like mayo and tomatoes and stuff. For me, a Turkey Club is just turkey, cheese, bacon, and lettuce. And so that would easily be the one for me. My favorite like kind of deli sandwich I make at home is Ryan's is a chicken BLT. That's what Ryan does with no tomato. So I don't know how it's a BLT if the T is missing. So it's a chicken BL. But but for me, my favorite sandwich to make at home is I'll actually take either bread that I make because I actually make homemade bread. I haven't made it as much recently because I've just been so busy. But it's I'll make it with my bread, or I'll get like a ciabatta, or I'll just get like a hoagie type of bread, and then I'll take some turkey, lay down turkey, and then I'll lay down roast beef, and then I'll put so I'll put that in the toaster oven, and then I'll put the other side in with some provolone on the top, and then just toast it, and then I put lettuce on it. Like that's my favorite sandwich because like I don't like mayo, I don't like ketchup, I don't like mustard. So the thing I like about a turkey and roast beef is when you put it in the toaster, the juices kind of start flowing, and so it's got like a natural like kind of that little marinade. So it's not like it's as dry as you get maybe when you just eat it cold. So that's my favorite sandwich. So yeah, very good question. Andrew Strauss Ball says, "What is the deal with Brandon Davis Swain? Why is Notre Dame still a leader for him? They are not. I don't know why he put them in there. I don't know why people they're not recruiting Brandon Davis Swain as far as I know. I have not heard anything from anyone at Notre Dame talking about they're still recruiting Brandon Davis Swain. It's kind of like when Caden Proctor released his top 4 last year and Notre Dame was in it, and Notre Dame hadn't recruited him in months. These kids put Notre Dame in there because it's Notre Dame. It still carries weight. And so no, he's not a Notre Dame target. So So good question on that one. Benjamin Carchi says, looking ahead, do you think Notre Dame stays with NBC or moves to another network with better broadcasting talent and a better product? I would hope they'd move somewhere else, but honestly, after what's happened this last week, I just don't. I have very rocked faith in the leadership that would be part of that decision. My hope is they would go somewhere else. I think the moves that that it's very interesting to me because NBC, part of the attraction to NBC for me was that you were the only show in town. Well, NBC is now going to be airing Big Ten games. And so you're not the only game in town anymore. So I don't feel I have the same level of loyalty to NBC that I would have had before. So it's go with the better product. And now, do I have faith that the current leadership is going to negotiate a better deal? Or are they going to take the easy deal? I don't know. I really don't know. My hope, and I've said this before, my hope is that they either go to Fox or like I honestly kind of like what the Big Ten did, where they kind of went with multiple networks. So maybe Notre Dame works out some kind of deal, and I'm just throwing this out, where Notre Dame works out some kind of deal with like Fox and NBC, where and maybe NBC airs their day games, but Notre Dame's going to play 2 night games a year, and those are on Fox or vice versa, or maybe they do something like CBS, where their night games are going to be on CBS. I personally would much rather see Notre Dame just go to CBS now. I don't know what CBS really has outside of what the AAC. I think is about all they really have. So I think you could become the sort of the flagship for CBS sports football. But the main reason is, and I've said this before, I'm not going to lie, I just would love to have Notre Dame come out every game to the CBS college football music. That's really the main reason that I want Notre Dame to go to CBS, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. But yeah, I would CBS, Fox, I would much rather have over NBC. Much rather have. No question. And ESPN's not even an option for me. Like, I'm not saying Notre Dame feels that way, but for me, they're not. Brandon Plesner says, are you aware of the timeline for the supposed Goog renovation or upgrade for the food and nutrition program besides the cooking classes? Well, I mean, the cooking classes are part of it, but they're dragging their feet on a lot of the stuff. And I don't understand why. I don't know of a timeline. I've been told it was going to happen soon. I don't even want to start putting timelines on it because it would be me just guessing. I don't have the answer to that, Brandon. I'll try to get it and try to find it and maybe have it for next week, but I don't have an answer to that one at this point in time. But it needs to start happening quick. Ray Schulte said, got to get my questions in before I have to teach class. Brian, what is your favorite RPO look? Can you break it down all the way to formation, back alignment, run call, and route concept? I can't give you my favorite RPO look because there's so much that goes into it. What's the defensive look that I'm facing this week? Are they a 2-high team? Are they a single high team that prefers to have their second safety playing the alleys? Because I may say, hey, look, this week in my RPO look, I love running fade outs into the boundary because I can run the corner off with my outside guy. If I get a cover 0, I can maybe throw that fade. Or if we get them out leveraged, then I'm just banging that little quick out into space. That may be a look that I like. I may go kind of a bubble look into that. I may just bang a hitch to the boundary, but that all depends on the kind of look. There are games where when I'll look at teams, or I'll say, or even when we kind of did stuff similar to this, we would more check it. It wasn't an RPO. We would have the quarterback check it, but it was a similar philosophy. We would just bang hitches and quick outs into the boundary until they stopped it. Well, if you're playing a cover 2 team, I can't run that. They're just, the guy's literally sitting on the route. So I just end up having to convert it. Those are times where you maybe want to run glance routes, is when you've got that kind of squatted type of coverage. Do I want to run it out of 3x1 or 2x2? It depends on the defense. So there's just so many different aspects to it that I couldn't tell you my favorite concept to run. I think, to me, RPO, when done correctly, you have several different things that you do. Here's things that would be part of my RPO package if I was a coach, though. I'd have my quick game into the boundary, which is a combination of hitches and quick outs, or quick slides and quick outs from the inside. So hitches, speed outs from the outside, and then hitches or slides, little quick option routes, and then just quick outs and slides from the slot. Those are things I would do. I would have there's a under package that Notre Dame has done. I did like that, where they would kind of bootleg off of it and kind of block for the screen to the field. I would do now screens. I like now screens more. I'm more of a now screen guy to the field. I don't necessarily love now screens to the boundary. They work. They get you 6, 7, 8 yards, but I just feel like they also can get blown up a little bit more. So I'm more of a throw it vertically, like past the line of scrimmage into the boundary. I'll throw more screens to the field where I have more room to work, where my guys can make people miss. So bubbles to the field. I like hitches to the field. I like glance routes if you can teach it right. You have to really work on it. And I think what a glance can do is it just gives you so much flexibility to react to the defense. It can look like a slant route one play. It can kind of look like an in another play, and then it can look like a quick post on others. And so I think those are things that I really like about the glance concepts is because it gives you that flexibility. Because I kind of like banging an RPO behind the second level player if a team is going to, depending on how a team is going to play. But you just got to be coach it right. I mean, that's the big thing is you got to coach it right. But I think you've got to have some diversity to what you do. You can't just have like a concept that you like. There's concepts I like versus different coverages. I'm going to like concepts versus too high with an aggressive corner, whether it's you're rolling to some sort of three cloud or three sky, whether you're playing cover two, whether you're playing two man. If you're going to be a two high team with corners down or a single high team with corners that are playing man, some of the stuff that I would run against off coverage isn't going to work as well. And so it just depends on what you're doing. And that's really what it comes down to. You just got to figure out what you're facing. John A. once said at the conclusion of the bowl game, it was mentioned that Notre Dame fans should expect several transfers out of the program for both portal periods. Did that picture change with the recent staff changes? Well, they still have to have, I think, at least 5 guys leave the program in some capacity because I still believe they're at 90 players. So they're going to have that. And we've seen some guys leave. Kane Barong left. Osita Ekwonu left. Drew Pine left. There's been several guys leave. There will be some more guys that are gone from the program during the spring. So I expect more transfers to happen. They have to have some transfers happen. Some guys will be injured, go on the academic scholarship. Some guys will go on medical situations, but you'll see some guys just leave because they get beat out. But that's going to come after, depending on what the competition is this spring. So we'll still see some guys leave. Coach Bent says, since both records were broken this year, which career record do you think it's broken again first? Tight ends by a tight end, touchdowns by a tight end, or sacks? Well, I mean, touchdowns by a tight end is going to probably be something that we have a chance to see more of because there's younger tight ends on the roster that are going to have a chance to put up those kind of numbers. So, I mean, because we're talking career tight ends, I mean, if Jordan Patel, Josh Burnham comes out and let's say he has 6 or 7 sacks this year, he would need like 7. He'd need like 19 sack to 18 sacks or 20 sacks over the next 3 years to get there. That's 4 years of really good production. He could maybe get there, and Jordan Patel unlikely. I mean, so there really aren't a lot of guys in consideration. It would have to come from somebody who hasn't played a whole lot yet. And so all of them are going to kind of be down the road type of things. And I just, of those two, boy, I'd probably say, now that I think about it, I'd probably say sacks because I look at the future of the receiver position and it is very bright. So it might be a little harder for a tight end to get those kind of touchdown numbers perhaps. Or you could say the receiver production is so good that tight ends are getting a lot more one-on-ones than Michael Mayer ever got. And so that gives them a chance in the red zone. So that's a good question. I'd say neither of them are going to get broken anytime soon, to be honest with you, would be my guess. Sean Green said, your prediction of the percentage breakdown of carries between the 3 or 4 if Price is healthy running backs this upcoming season. So to me, I would be so part of this is let's just assume that Sam Hartman's the starting quarterback. I would say that I'd say my prediction would be that the top two ball carriers will get about 65% of the snaps of the carries. You'll see about 25% go to Chris Tyree, about another 5% go to backup running backs, receivers, and then the other 5% goes to the quarterback position. If Tyler Buckner's the starting quarterback this year, I think that changes a little bit. So that's how I would kind of go with it. That's how I would go with it at this point in time. Brandon Plensner says, are there any names out there for possible O-line coaches Freeman is interested in that can be publicly discussed? Any guys you like Notre Dame to take a look at outside of Funk? That would be Darryl Funk of BYU. I mean, honestly, when it comes down to it, at that point in time, Brandon, all I'm going to do is like list you the guys that I like as coaches. I mean, that's really all I can do, and so I don't want to do that, because if I started listing names that I liked, then it would be perceived as I'm giving you names that Notre Dame is looking at. And honestly, I'm still doing my research, because there's been a lot of O-line coaches that were good that have moved on. So I'm still kind of putting that list together, to be completely honest with you. Chris Watt would be on it. I think Chris Watt's got a lot of potential, so I'm at least going to interview him and kind of talk to him, talk to the players. I think one of the benefits is if Chris Watt stays on staff and is the O-line coach, Harry's going to be working with him on the side, which I think helps as well. But I don't want to start throwing names out, because I really want to get a chance to start doing some homework on some O-line coaches that I like. I mean, I could start throwing out names like, one of the rumors is Alex Maribel, who is the O-line coach at Miami, was with Oregon. Like, I could tell you I like Coach Maribel, but I have no idea if that would be a fit at Notre Dame. I have no clue. So just give me a little time to kind of figure out who I like, and I'll start giving you guys some names, and we'll go from there. So that's where I'm at on the O-line coaches at this point in time. And Brandon, honestly, if I was going to do that, I'd probably put on the message board before, so we could kind of engage a little bit more. Johnny once said, do you suspect different players to be highlighted in the offense next year when Notre Dame throw the ball to the second tight end more now? I do expect that a little bit, yes. The other thing is, I do think we're going to see the pass game more wide receiver centric next year. From what I'm told, we're going to see the receiver. Not that the tight ends won't get the ball a good amount, they will. But you got to remember, Jared Parker coached tight ends last year, but he spent most of his career coaching wide receivers. He played wide receiver at Kentucky. Yeah, I think he caught like 15 balls or something like that his senior year there, because he had dealt with injuries and things like that during his career. But he caught like 15 balls as a senior. He's a wide receiver by trade, and not just as a player, but also a coach. He was the wide receivers coach at West Virginia. He was a receivers coach at Penn State. He was a receivers coach at Duke. He was a receivers coach for his second half of his career at Purdue. So he spent most of his career at wide receiver. So this is not a thing where you're moving a guy to tight ends coach, and now your offense is going to be, or to your tight ends coach to offensive coordinator, and all of a sudden your offense is just really dominated by the tight end. The tight end is going to be a factor at Notre Dame. There's no doubt. I think we'll see the second tight end probably get a little bit more targets next year. But I think we're going to see the receiver production take a big jump next season, in my opinion. And honestly, that's where the RPO comes from. That's where you're going to see a lot of touches in that regard. That's where you really need a guy like Lorenzo Styles to step up this offseason, because he has that skill set that you're like, boy, in an RPO offense, this guy could be really good if his head's on straight. I mean, we saw that in the first play of the game against Ohio State. He makes a catch on an RPO, makes one guy miss. Guy tries to play the ball, it misses, and Lorenzo takes off for 54 yards. So I think he's a guy that you got to hope has a big offseason, because he could really be an impactful guy in the RPO game. I think we talked about this last week. I can't remember when Ryan and I were discussing this, but the incoming freshman receivers in a Jared Parker offense, I think there's a lot more value to Caleb Smith now, the incoming freshman Caleb Smith, because he gives you a little bit of that shiftiness that you really need in an RPO offense. It's more ideal in the RPO to have a guy that can do something after the catch. And the guy that to me is the best after the catch guy in an RPO concept coming out of high school is Caleb Smith. I think that a greater emphasis on RPO also could be great for Jaden Greathouse. I could see Jaden Greathouse catching a ton of RPOs during his career. So I think guys like that are going to be impactful as well. So I think the receiver game is going to be much more impactful. Hey, you ready to go down there? Ready to roll? So I didn't feel like doing this show by myself all alone today, and so I got my guy Sean Davis jumping in here with me. So Sean, thank you so much for joining me on the mailbag today, man. I know you guys had a intense show today, really another great show today. So we're ready to
That was mild. That was pretty mild today.
mild compared to the conversation the way you and I were talking this morning and last night. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe I helped you get a lot of it out beforehand, so you're welcome. So Sean Davis is with us now as we continue to work through the mailbag questions. Richard Meredith says, what advantages will we have that other teams won't have much film on a Jared Parker offense? Sean, I think the first thing for me is I don't think there's going to be a secret about what Notre Dame's going to look like on offense next year.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a whole lot different than what they were this year structurally. They're not. It's not. They're going to come out and their run game. They're running pin and pull now all game. You're going to see some wrinkles that it's going to take some teams to figure out. But honestly, by the time they play a good team, they're going to. I mean, NC State in week 3 is going to have an idea of what Notre Dame's going to look like, and Ohio State by week 5 is definitely going to know what Notre Dame's going to look like. So I don't know if it really gives them some advantages because the teams that they're going to play early that it would be an advantage for, Richard, are teams that they should throttle anyway. And I'm not a believer, especially when you're installing new things. I'm not a believer in those, hey, let's hold off on not doing stuff we like so we can wait for the NC State game. Well, now you have no game reps of you getting good at it. So I'm a believer of show them what you got, and if anything, when you're playing teams that aren't good, give them more. Give them even more to prepare for.
Yeah.
Run some reverses and some wrinkles that maybe you aren't really part of your base offense, just to get them to be preparing for things that are taking them away from what you really like to do. So I've always had that philosophy, Sean, of when I'm playing a bad team, I'm going to do even more than I normally do to give future opponents a lot more to think about, especially when we're talking about coming out of the gate the first couple games of the year.
I think something that can be an advantage when they do reach that meat of the schedule and just overall is personnel, right? Because personnel, you can only do what your personnel dictates. Like a team can look and say, well, man, this is what this guy likes to do. But if he doesn't have the personnel to do it, we're really not worried about it. And I think the personnel on the offensive side of the ball would tend to make most of us believe that Notre Dame is going to be far more complex offensively than they were able to be last year, especially when it comes to the passing game. When you have the history of a quarterback that is able to deliver the ball to multiple receivers per game, that bodes well to the wide receiver room experiencing a far greater usage than they've experienced probably over the last 2 or the previous 2 seasons. So, not seeing that for a lot of teams that have been on Notre Dame's schedule could be a bit of a shock for some coordinators. But like you said, once they get the film over the first 3 games, the only other thing that can really shock teams is personnel that they haven't seen. Some of the incoming freshmen being introduced to the offense in week 4, week 5, week 6, things of that nature. Guys like Jeremiah Love being used out of the backfield, Chris Tyree being used differently than he's been used. Things like that can definitely be a difference and a slight advantage because teams haven't seen it. Teams haven't seen it. I think one personnel grouping that you would probably love to see a lot more would be 21 personnel, with this team. You've seen it sparsely used, but if they really went and made it an advantage for them in matchups, you know, what, 12 to 15 times per game?
Yeah. Well, especially if you're going to do more RPOs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason not to tag that stuff. I mean, even things out of split back. I could imagine Notre Dame being in a 20 personnel group.
Yeah.
And you're running zone out of 21 personnel, and you run a inside zone with your back and then a swing route from the other back, just kind of going around and putting that overhang defender in a really stressful situation. Just a lot of different things like that. I think you could have a lot of fun with. And
it's amazing, right? Because most fans see Sam Hartman, they automatically say, man, we really want to throw the ball,
right.
And we can go back and just look at what we saw last Sunday. I thought Andy Reid did an incredible job against that pass rush of using 12, 13, 21 personnel to be able to do a lot of diverse things, whether it was running the ball. I mean, I think they ran the ball 26 times. They threw the ball 27 times. You can have tremendous balance. A lot of people think to throw the ball, you have to go to 11 personnel, 4. No. Like if you know what you're doing, you can do a lot of different things out of 12, 21, and other, personnel groups that honestly, staying in that 12 personnel and going to 21, you can have guys on skates defensively,
Yeah.
especially if you properly use motion, which is
Sean,
what Kansas
you
City
can
did.
go the type of talent that Notre Dame has on offense, you could go 22 personnel and
No,
on one
never.
play have 2 tight ends attached and have a running back kind of blocking the edge. And then on the next play, you could be empty
Hmm.
because of the type of pass catchers that Notre Dame has at tight end
Yeah,
and running back. And I think so there's to your point, there's a lot you can do personnel wise. And I'd rather see a team run a mess of different personnel looks and motions and shifts than running twice as much volume from pass concepts. I'd rather
yeah,
you say, give me some pass concepts you like, tag it with some different backside stuff, and run it 15 different ways. Or and by ways I'm referring to formationally,
yeah,
and then all the little wrinkles that kind of come with that. So I'd rather see that than running 25, 30 different pass plays and wrinkles, and then all the wrinkles that come from that. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of that. I have a super chat from ZF. Has there been any comment from Ludwig's agent? Not that I've seen, Sean. I haven't seen anything like that.
No,
No.
I haven't. There's no need, right? Why would his agent say anything? His
You're
agent
winning the PR war by not saying anything.
and his
I
agent
mean,
did his job.
right. Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Joe Medina, Brian, I've been an IB subscriber for a little over a year. Thank you for that, Joe. I'm just curious as to the reason you decided to begin IB and who was your first hire. Well, there's a lot of reasons why I decided to do it. I've always kind of wanted to do my own thing. I've always been a believer that if you want things done a certain way, then either make change from the inside or start your own business. At my previous place of employment, I had made as much change as I could and realized that the direction that the company was going was not one I was comfortable with. And so my wife and I had decided that I was eventually going to start my own company. And my boss at the time and I had a bit of a, let's say, a harsh disagreement about the financial direction the business wanted to go. And so I pushed back on that a little bit. And so I decided I was going to leave. And then SI reached out and said, "Hey, we're interested in you coming over and starting the Notre Dame site here." And so I was originally just going to leave and just start a podcast and just do it that way and build that way. So then we started the website and it just kind of evolved a little bit over time. And we had the website, if you remember at the beginning, it was Irish Maven, and then it became Irish Breakdown, and because the Irish Breakdown actually started as a podcast. And so we had Irish Maven, but even when we started Irish Maven, I started the podcast separately, and it was called Irish Breakdown. And then eventually I brought the Irish Breakdown over to Irish, changing the name, and everything now is under the Irish Breakdown umbrella. And then, of course, we eventually went to the YouTube channel. And then when I first started the website, they had their own message board. It was lame, and then they eventually got rid of it. When hey, we're going to start a new one. Well, eventually they said, hey, we're just not going to care about message boards. And so that was like a golden opportunity for me to launch the message board. And so now that's why the message board is entirely private. It's entirely our own. And honestly, that's the benefit. And that's the reason I can charge the lower amount that I charge. We charge $4.99 a year as opposed to most other companies are like $9.99 and things like that. They'll give you like specials to get you in for the year, the first year and all that. But the reason they have to charge that much is because you're splitting the revenue between two entities. So, for example, and I'm just using Irish Illustrated as an example, but Irish Illustrated is obviously a company, and Tim and Pete and those guys are all have like that's kind of their baby. They own Irish Illustrated, but they're partnered with 24/7. So the revenue they get from memberships and ads is split between the two entities, the Irish Illustrated entity and then 247 entity. And so that's why you have to charge a little bit more for that. And then, of course, they get ad revenue from stories and things like that is also split. Well, we split the revenue with SI for the ad revenue on that site, but the message board is the outside of the transaction fee that I get that there is on the credit card transaction, which for a monthly membership is like I think 44 cents for an annual membership. So I think like a buck, it's like a little over a dollar. It's like $1.15, something like that. Other than those transaction fees, all the money we make off of it goes directly to Irish Breakdown. So that instead of just charging what the others charged, I decided I wanted to make it a more affordable product. And so I made the business decision to say, I'd rather have more people at a lower rate, which I think eventually equals the same amount. I could charge $9.99 and have half the people, but then I'd still be making the same amount of money, as opposed to making it more affordable and then having more people join, broadening our community and being able to go that way. And it worked out because as we've kind of gotten into tougher times, I know people that have decided to stick with Irish Breakdown because we were the cheapest of all the sites as we get into some of the financial crises we've had and difficulties and challenges that we've had. So there's just been a different reason for every bit of part of it. Like when I first started the podcast, I had no intention of doing YouTube. And Vince and I talked about it and decided, let's give it a shot. And we started doing videos in order to put on the website. So we would record a video and then we'd put it on the website. So we had video content for the website. Well, and then we did a thing after the Rose Bowl against Alabama where we did like a post game rant, and man, it got like a lot of views. What we thought, we got to over 1,000 views, and we're thinking, holy moly, that's a lot of views. You know what I mean? Like maybe we should try this. And everybody we talked to was like, no, don't do it. You don't make any money on YouTube. Don't do it. And YouTube is our least profitable revenue stream of all the main revenue streams, but we still do well with it. But then YouTube led to then Blue Wire reaching out saying, hey, we like what you're doing on the YouTube aspect of it, in the podcast aspect. Would you guys like to maybe partner? I had talked to Locked On. I had talked to some other companies. I did not like their business model. I've always kind of wanted to do my own thing. The thing I love about Blue Wire is Blue Wire says, here's the deal. If you make money, we make money. So if you think you have a way of doing it, then let's roll with it. So that's why we do longer shows. We're Locked On wanted you to say you're going to stick within this time frame and you're going to do like one show. And we'll put out like 6-7 shows a day, because we'll cut up different shows into different aspects. And so the big thing for me, honestly, Joe, was ego. And it was, I wanted to do it my way. And I was willing to fail as long as I did it my way, because I had belief in what I was going to do. I feel that God really looked out for me, though, because taking me to SI was a huge blessing, because the first year that I was there, I was working under a guarantee. So no matter how little traffic we had a guarantee. Well, COVID hits 5 months after I launch the website, and I have no sports to cover. And we were a startup company. And if it wasn't for that guarantee, I don't know if we'd have made it the way that we did. And so once the guarantees went away, we had grown to the point where we started having, more success, and it's really taken off. But it's just also been trying to say, hey, being open-minded, right? Like, hey, let's start this CFB Nation channel. Hey, we're expanding it. Hey, I need a Notre Dame channel on that. Hey, Sean, my friend, someone who I've worked with and done a lot of things with, someone who's a dear friend. Why don't you guys come over and join? So there's just been all these things where it's just like trying to be open about how can we grow? How can we get better? And there's some projects that I want to do. I was really hoping that this past year we were going to do a magazine, and there's just so much going on. But now I'm hoping to have a magazine. So there's always things that I want to expand, but it really comes down to, I just wanted a place where I could say whatever the heck I wanted to say, however I wanted to say it, not have to worry about anybody looking over my shoulder, telling me you can't say that, you can't say this. And I wanted to do it my way. I had a belief on how to grow business in this market, which is free articles, premium message board. Where the community, make people that are really part of the community, then they'll be willing to pay for the message board. But for the casual fan who either A, doesn't have the money to be part of a community, or doesn't have the time, or doesn't want to invest the time, they just want to read the articles, then they have stuff that they can consume. People that can listen to our shows can consume our shows and not have to pay, and we're still generating revenue. So it doesn't become this thing where to be part of Irish Breakdown, you look at it, but I'm going to end up spending like some $20 a month on these guys, between the podcast being premium and this being premium and that thing being premium. We wanted to create a community that's more open and welcoming. And then we would know that people then come to the premium aspect of it because they so enjoy the community we're building in this free realm. So that's kind of where I've gone. And if you're going to ask who my first hire was, it depends on what you mean by hire. My first full-time hire was Ryan. He's my only right now full-time employee. But the first person I brought on board was Vince. I mean, that was a no-brainer. So interestingly, Vince actually replaced me at Blue and Gold because I had brought Vince on to help at Blue and Gold. And then when I left and I got out of my non-compete and was able to go somewhere else, they offered Vince the job to replace me. And Vince is like, I don't know if I should do this. And I was like, bro, you got to do this, right? Like you finish your contract. And when your contract's over, you know where you're going to be. And so that was the first guy that we brought on. And honestly, Vince did a lot of stuff for free at the beginning because we weren't making any money. And so that's why, I told Vince, you always have a home at Irish Breakdown, man, because he truly invested. It was about his faith in me and his friendship with me that said, hey, I'll do stuff for free. When Sean started first coming offers, he wasn't getting paid to do stuff. I told him I was going to. He's like, no, you don't have to pay me, man. And so having those people that believed in what we were doing, but also people that were friends and that were willing to help, allowed us to grow as well. So Sean, Vince was first. And then I had like a couple guys that like helped with like little recruiting things here and there. And that none of those lasted very long. Then obviously Sean came on to help with the podcast stuff. And then Ryan was the next big move. And then of course, Sean Stiers was the next big move after that. And I still want to hire the editor. We were going to do interviews a couple weeks ago, just with everything going on. I've had some health issues that have kept me from doing that, but that's going to be my next move still. And for some of the people out there that have been wanting to do it, I haven't filled the job. I haven't done the interviews yet. I'm still considering you, so I'll be in touch here very soon. But yeah, that's kind of where I became from, and we're always going to try to keep our eyes on the future as well. Make sure the present is good, but also make sure we're keeping our eyes on the future and always make it better and always make it different. And there's a lot of things I want to do. It just I need you got to sure you do things financially smart. And I've yet to take out a loan for Irish Breakdown. I've yet to accrue any debt. When I use a credit card for any business purchase, I immediately pay it off. And so that protects me, but it also means that sometimes the growth is a little slower. So I want to bring somebody on, but I need to make sure that I've got our business is in the right foundation to get there first. And so we're going to grow. I'm a steady wins the race kind of guy, right? For me. And so that's why I'm less risk averse. Maybe when it comes to like taking loans, and I've had people offer to buy into the company, and those were hard numbers to turn down, Sean, very hard numbers to turn down. But I just really felt like I didn't want to lose control of how I wanted this done. And that's really what it comes down to. So I hope that answers your question, Joe. But yeah, that's where it's coming from. So Mr. 2.0, are Pop-Tarts ravioli? I don't even understand what that's about. I don't understand that. And
That's an actually interesting question. They are somewhat of a pastry ravioli. I can rock with that. I can rock with that.
I don't even know how those two things are considered the
I,
same.
I can rock with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No opinion on that one. Lance River says, have you ever thought about a call-in show, Brian? I mean, number one, I have thought about it, but it's just probably not something we're going to do, to be honest with you. Right now, that I don't have the technology for it. That would cost money. The second part of it is I have less control over what somebody says or does. And right now for that, and 99.9% of the people that would call in would have great things to say. And but then there's that one person that just wants to call in and say ignorant things and try to get me in trouble. And ultimately I'd be responsible for that. So it's just not worth the risk. There are some things that we're thinking of along those lines that we may get to at some point in time that would allow us a little bit more editorial control over what shows up. But that's just not something that's in the cards right now. But look, guys, I don't plan on going away in a year or two, right? Like this is this is my career. This is what I'm going to do. We're always going to be evolving and finding new things. And there may come a time where the technology is there and affordable enough, or we've grown enough to where I can afford the technology to where we would do something like that. Because I love the idea. It's just there's too much risk, especially doing it via YouTube, where you get those checks and it's like, well, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. Well, it was on your channel. Well, okay. Yeah, it was. That's on me. Yeah, that's on me. And so we just don't have the ability to do the things you need to do to edit it, like a TV station or like a radio station does. They have the ability to edit it. Like they can, you know, have the delay system so they can delete things or whatever the case may be, or mute it or whatever. And we just don't have that right now. And I would absolutely need that before we would do any kind of call in show.
Yeah.
So, Sean, thoughts on that? I mean, have you guys thought about doing something like that?
No, every now and then we'll throw the link to the show for fans in the chat every now and then, and have people face to face. Because if I'm sitting here and just start, I can remove you at any point in time. And most fans are pretty stable, like you said. But my experience in radio is the same. Like, you can never take your ears off of the speakers because you always have to have your finger ready for the dump button. Always. And most of the time, that dump button goes directly to the program director. So every time you hit it, they know something's happened and they want to know what was said or why you did it. So I understand the hesitancy not to do it, unless you just don't care. And with these new guidelines with YouTube now, where they're really cracking down on language, it yeah, it makes it even more difficult.
Frank McCatchy brought up a great point. He said, Brian, you're going to have some real crazy Bama fans calling by mid-October. Like, could you imagine we were doing a call-in show and the LSU fans were, like, losing their crap over what the comments that I made about LSU?
Oh boy.
Like, yeah, but yes. Yes.
What are they
Yes.
gonna call in and ask us to take them back? Are those the calls that
I
we're
think
taking?
I think he'll do okay there. I think he'll do okay there. So let's get to the next question there, Ryan. John A1 said, do you think the environment at practices will be different now? Do you suspect the media will have less access now following the last week's events? Oh, I think we were going to have less access regardless. But yes, I don't think Notre Dame's going to do us any favors, which in reality, they're hurting themselves by doing that. That's the stupid thing about it.
Yeah.
Like, they're hurting themselves by not allowing more media access and allowing the excitement to grow. They missed a golden opportunity last year during spring and fall with that. And then they're not even making up for us not being there by putting out their own content, which is just an incredibly poor way to run that part of the department. And I know they had some cuts and things like that, but whatever. I mean, you're Notre Dame. Money is not your problem. You just, that should be happening. It's just golden opportunities to sell your program. That's what it is. Every single day they have a practice that they don't have something from it is, it's a golden opportunity that you've passed up. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Do the environment will be different now? Yeah, I mean, will it be better? Don't know. Will it be different? Yes, because Jared Parker's a completely different personality than Tommy Rees. And that's always true when you have coaching changes, Sean. I'm
Mhm.
not saying it'll be better, worse. I'm not making that statement. I'm simply saying it'll definitely be different because he's a different kind of coach. Just like Mike Elko and Clark Lee were very close, very similar philosophy defensively because they work
Yeah.
together. But how Clark Lee felt a practice should be run and the energy level there and how he was completely different than what Mike Elko did. Not better, not worse, just different. Because every coach brings their own personality to the practice plans and practice structure. And that one lead voice is now going to be different. And he brings a different kind of energy level than Tom Rees brought to the table.
It'll be interesting though, right? Because I know personally for myself, I got used to practice sounding a certain way, right? You would focus on what was in front of you, and there was always this extra sound coming from across the field, and you knew who it was, you knew what it was, and it kind of just blended in. And now the Harry He stand's gone. It's going to be different. Not hearing that in the midst of everything. So I guess it'll be a different audio mix in practice that we're not used to, and everything you just pointed out. I just think the vibes would be different, honestly. And I'll be interested in hearing what Ryan says about this, with us being there at the pro day and being there at the first practice last year. I think the energy is going to be different. I'm talking players. I think there's going to be a different energy amongst the players when they come into spring practice this year. And that is going to be the biggest change. We can talk about the coaches, but I think these players are self motivated. I don't really think the coaches are going to have to say too much to the players for them to understand what's going on and to kind of get into a bunker mentality and say, look, it's us. This This is us. This is our season. Let's go do it. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to see the energy that the players bring to everything in the spring.
Next question from We Are Not Marshall. Can we get a live show with the whole crew on set?
That actually would be pretty nice.
Logistically, that would be hard, but we'll have shows where we all do something. I want to do some fundraisers in 2023, and when we do those fundraisers, we'll have different parts of our team on at different times. And so, but as far as like getting everyone there on like in the StreamYard,
Hmm.
that would be something we could do. It'd be a little challenge. We've had like 4 at a time, and we don't have that many more than 4. I mean, so like if when we were doing the post game shows, it was me, Sean, Vince, and Ryan. Well, the only person we were missing was Sean Stiers.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
and Jesse's does not work for me. Jesse kind of helps his dad and things like that. But he does a good job too. So we've had him on from time to time as well. But I mean, may do something like that one of these days. I like when I talk about how I envision this thing, Sean, like I do envision someday where we do have more of a studio look to things
hmm,
like that, and
yeah,
but then again, that gets difficult because I can be in studio, but then Ryan isn't, Sean isn't. And
yeah.
so those are all things that's why those things are so much further down the road than they are now. But because the only people could be on it in studio would be like me, Sean Stiers, and Vince. And even Vince would be hard because he's in school most of the time. So um yeah, he said he did kind of rephrase it. He said, "Let me rephrase. Can we get a studio look with the whole crew on site at a Notre Dame home game?" No, we can't do
Mm.
that. Notre Dame won't let it. They won't let us. They got mad at us when we did the Jeremiah Love thing. Yeah, so you're not
Really?
allowed to do that. Yeah, you can't not allowed to do that. So you can record from like one corner of the end zone during one portion of the game, and I mean they explained to me it makes sense. There's certain contracts they have with certain media entities that they're the only ones allowed to carry content from campus on game day. So it was. I mean, I understood it.
Oh, so if you
So
technically had been across the street.
yeah, so like if we did it like at a hotel across the street, they'd have no
Yeah.
problem with it. It's just
Okay.
contractually they're just not allowed. Like they're bound to anything that's produced from the stand that day has to go to one of those networks. So I mean I get it, and then those networks can't carry recruits. So I said, hey, can we do something where I'll call up Allison Hayes and say, hey, can we have a kid go live to commit during your pregame show? And they can't do that because they're technically a partner with the school, and so they can't carry a recruitment thing there and there. So there's a lot of those weird things like that. So I was like, that so it's okay. So we can't do it on campus anymore, but we can do things across the street. If we want to do it at like a restaurant, at across the street or at a hotel across the street or something like that off campus, they'd have no problem with it. It's just
Gotcha.
it's le- I had no issue when they explained it to me. I was like, okay, I got you. I
That's
understand, right?
totally
I understand.
understandable. Yep,
Yeah,
totally
they weren't
understandable.
mad like, hey, we wanted to do that. What are you doing? It was just more of a, hey, man, we have no beef with it, but it's like, but you just can't legally, we can't allow that to happen. So I
Right.
totally understood. It was all
Yeah.
good.
They have to
Yeah.
protect themselves and
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. And they're media partners that are
Yep.
paying them to do that.
Yep.
Right. So that's, and then if we were to enter in a contract to be able to provide content from the place, that number one, that'd be really expensive. And number two, we then could not have recruits on
Yeah.
for the same reasons. So
I
it's like,
mean,
I don't know what's the point.
NBC can cut IB a check in the future for
Yeah.
doing stuff like that on campus as part of the TV deal.
Right. There you go. There you go. There you go. Jaywick 13. Can Vince grow a beard? Can Ryan grow a beard? Whose would look better? Vince could grow a beard in like a day and a half. Vince is
Yo,
very Italian. He could, yeah, he could grow a beard quickly.
Ryan with a beard would be interesting.
I have a feeling Ryan's beard would like be really thin. It would be like not real thick. It would take him like a month and a half to grow something. You know what I mean? He's got that baby face, Sean. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he's got that little baby face look. I don't know, man. I don't know if he could rock it. We're saying this, of course, because we're busting Ryan's chops because he's actually down there emceeing and hearing every word that we're talking about. But I don't know if he could grow a beard, Sean. I don't know. I don't know. He's
I think he could. I
yeah.
think
I
he
mean,
could.
eventually. I mean,
I
you
think
give
he
him a
could.
couple months, and he
I
might
think he
grow in.
could. I think he could. I don't know if he could be. I don't know if he would have the patience to stick with it. But
Well, that's why I grow mine out and then shave it off. Grow it out, shave it off because I hate the maintenance of it.
yeah,
I can't stand the
yeah.
maintenance of it. It drives me nuts. All right, let's go to the next question. We've made fun of Ryan enough, so he's down there just shaking his head. Neil Walker said there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around the buyout and Notre Dame's response. Isn't it possible that the Heastan retirement changed the calculus and that's why they moved on from Ludwig, the O-line coach buyout? No, it has nothing to do with it. Like, look, some of y'all are really trying to find a rational justification for why this ball got dropped, and there isn't one. And look, I'll just say it now. Sometimes it's okay, and we all do it, to just say, you know what, I screwed up. We screwed up. We dropped the ball. There's nothing wrong with that. You've done a lot of good things in Notre Dame. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we screwed up. That's on us. It'll never happen again. But instead of that, they deflect, send out an incredibly condescending email saying people's passion is misguided, saying it's the media's problem. They ran with something. Like, no. And then now you have these people on Twitter that just believe everything that they hear from Notre Dame, saying, well, you just responded to a tweet. Our show had nothing to do with Pete Thamel's tweet. It had to do with the information we gathered from our sources following Pete Thamel's tweet. But they're just going to believe what they're going to say. And that's why they put that release out there yesterday. It's just because the people that they know are just going to sop up everything they say, are going to run with it. The reality, however, Sean, is there's a lot of people that were not happy about it because, A, it was very condescending in tone. You start off with this ridiculous Terrence Mann quote. Then you tell people their passion is misguided. Then you just flat out, mislead by saying, we were always going to pay it. No, the timeline makes no sense for that. And then act as if, like, well, when you came back to do your CYA and then you did offer the buyout as a CYA, you knew the bridge had already been burned. You knew that wasn't going to happen, but you're acting self-righteous. Here's the deal, Sean. If they just would have shut up and not said anything, this would be gone by the weekend. Be gone by the weekend. We even started yesterday's show like, look, y'all, we're moving on. I'm not talking. It is what it is. We're moving on. Then they come out with that and then try to take shots at us and then others like us, because we weren't the only one hammering Notre Dame.
No.
Athletic was, ESPN had their story. We had ours. There's been plenty of people that have had things to say about it. So it wasn't just us. But you when you do that, it's like, I was ready to move on. And now you come back with this and you disrespect people. And then at the end, you have the audacity and the tone deafness to ask for more money. To which I would have responded, well, you clearly had the money, so you don't need mine. You know what I mean? It just was a really unnecessary. It's what we always say about Notre Dame. It was an unforced error. You've now made two of them. The first was dropping the buyout situation. If they just would say, hey, look, there was a miscommunication between us and the parties involved, and that miscommunication just led to us not being able to get a deal done.
Right.
And, it is what it is. You don't even have to admit fault. You don't have to even say you screwed up. You say, hey, that's true. There was a miscommunication. You didn't get the freaking proper numbers from Utah or the agent.
Right.
Miscommunication and led to the deal wasn't able to get completed because of this miscommunication. And it's a bummer. We moved on, but we're very excited about having Coach Parker because we think he's going to do a great job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just said, okay, I mean, they're being truthful-ish. It is what it is. Let's move on. Right? And all rally behind Coach Freeman and Coach Parker, whatever else. But when he came out with that nonsense, first of all, it's a slap in the face to everyone. They think all of you are sheep that will just sop up whatever they say. Now, some of the people are, and there's always going to be that on every side of every issue, no matter what. But to call people's passion misguided and just flat out put out, I don't want to say lies because that's a very strong word, but things that we know is misleading, if not flat out false. And then to have the audacity to put the fundraising thing at the end. It's like, you can't possibly be that tone deaf to how people are feeling right now. And I got some calls from some people that wield some financial authority at Notre Dame, and they're even more pissed now than they were beforehand. And that's the thing is if he just would have shut up or put out a very bland, hey, sorry, it didn't work out. It's a miscommunication. We just weren't able to get on the same page from a timing standpoint, whatever. We're moving on, and we thank Coach Ludwig for coming in, and we know he's going to do a great job continue to do a great job at Utah, and we're excited about moving forward, Coach Parker. This would be gone.
Yep.
Gone.
Yep.
But Savvy Jack decided he wanted to come out and put that bull crap out in an email. It's like, come on, man. Like, you can't – I want to say you can't possibly believe we're stupid enough to buy that, but the reality is, Sean, there are people that were naive enough to buy that, in my opinion. Most don't, though. I mean, when I put out my response on the premium board last night to my response to Jack's email, I was expecting about a 60-40 on my side, on Jack's side. I believe Jack, and maybe you got it wrong. There was like 2. 10 pages long, there was like 2 people.
Yeah.
That's it. And now part of that's that's our message board of like-minded people. But like even on Twitter, I haven't had many. Ryan got into some of it. I'm like, can't waste your time with that guy. Most people see right through it.
That was a great back and forth between Ryan and that fan, though. I enjoyed that. Yeah, that's why I jumped in. I jumped in on his behalf. Like, no, look, I'm right there with you. Everything you said, nothing adds up. Look, Harry Heastan, they knew he was leaving a week before.
Right.
Ludwig even got to campus. So
it was 4 days before he arrived on campus. 3 or 4 days before he got out. But they knew it was a potential thing.
Right.
A week before, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So look, I understand, as a fan, we don't want to think like, no, not our school, not our administration.
Or in Neil's thing, Sean, he's in there saying it. He's like, I just feel like there has to be more to it. And I understand that. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I wish there was. I've been waiting on someone to tell me that there's something different. I'm waiting on someone to tell me, no, there's more to it than that. This is what really happened. But every time they give me a spin, it's like, dude, that's worse.
Mm-hmm.
That's worse. So like even in Jack's letter, let's say hypothetically that everything he said is true. That actually is worse. You slow played this so much that the coach that you wanted was pretty much done by the time you officially offered to pay out the buyout. He was ready to go. It was, he got cold feet. No, if you would have done this, from the time he left campus on Saturday, you had over 48 hours to get all this done by Monday night. You had even more time to get all the numbers and make sure that you absolutely knew what those numbers were. Absolutely. And you got it done. And so it's like, I just don't understand why they're just not willing to say, hey, look, it is what it is. It didn't go the way we wanted it to, and move on. But instead, they did it the way that they did it. And well, this is just Utah's agent trying to, love it. Well, then you should have been ahead of the game. You should have been ahead of that. Then why are you getting outmaneuvered by Utah and Andy Ludwig's agent if what you're saying is true? So okay, so again, it doesn't make you look better. It means you got played. None of these excuses you're giving me make you look better. They just make you look incompetent or dishonest or condescending, and that's exactly what Jack's email was yesterday. It was condescending and disrespectful and dismissive and deflecting and dishonest. And most people saw through it, and I'm glad. I actually, I'll be honest with you, John. There were some people that bought into it, but I was shocked at how many people saw through it, and I was my appreciation for the Notre Dame community, ours and others, my respect went up greatly in the last 24 hours when I saw how widely. Now, there's always people are going to buy the company line. I get it, and some people for understandable reasons. Mm-hmm. But it was widely rejected from what I've seen so far.
Yeah,
and I respect that from Notre Dame faithful because they saw through the BS. Yeah. And another thing too is if you said something about me like that was that false, I would have been on it quickly. Yeah. And number two, why did you send the email out the day that it got out that Jared Parker was your OC?
Yes.
How you going to take that?
Yes.
You're going. He's already
Feel
got a
that
dark
moment.
enough cloud over top of you. Now you're going to put this bull crap out on the day
Yeah.
that he's announced as the
Yeah.
OC.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to be good at this. So that was bad.
He's a good steward.
Yeah. Being a steward, hoarding money isn't making you a steward of it. I'm sorry. Anyway, John A1, who are some of the names you're hearing making jumps physically in the workout period? Honestly, John, I haven't even had a chance to do digging into that because of everything going on.
Once again, you're
Yeah.
stealing the moment
Yeah.
from the off season and the
Yeah.
players
We should be talking about
with
how
this
excited
foolishness.
it is to Sam Hartman and Jared Parker
Mhm.
and Gino Gaduli and all that. And instead we're dealing with this nonsense, which would have been gone by now had he just let it be. I promise you we'd have very few questions or conversations in this chat today, Sean, had he not sent that email out. Look, we have a very short attention span as a country. Very short attention span.
That's true.
Like, and I'm talking for things way more important than football. It's like big bad things will happen, and a week later, we're not talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
If you just shut your mouth, then this would be gone. But I think he felt a lot of pressure from the donor class. I know he felt a lot of pressure from the donor class and felt he had to say something. And they were getting bombarded with emails. And I think he just did it to be pithy and condescending. I guarantee he didn't send that letter to the people that are paying like the top dollar. I guarantee you he didn't send that letter to those people. He sent it to the peons who are paying, $50, $100, stuff like that. He views them as peons. I don't. Do you think he sent that letter to Tom Mendoza? You know what I'm saying? Like people like him? Heck no. Heck no.
Well, Tom Mendoza halfway called the process a failure.
Sean, he did it on Wednesday.
Yes.
You don't think if by Wednesday, you don't think if there was a legitimate thing to do that they wouldn't have told Tom? Tom would have been the first person to go out there and say, hey, this isn't on Notre Dame. He would have defended him, rightfully so. And they'd have told me, hey, this is what really happened. And I said, hey, look, we got the original story wrong. They didn't do that. They put out this, and the story kept changing. It kept changing over and over and over. First, it was, he's not our guy. Marcus likes people better. Then it was, well, the buyout was too much. We don't want to pay that much for it. We didn't want to reset the market. Oh, but then we did want to reset the market. The agent lied to us. I mean, there's been all these different things. It's just like, just stop. Just stop. Just say our bad and move on, or don't say anything because it'll go away. But you've now made it worse because now you've insulted your fans with that email. You condescended your fans in that email. You disrespected the people that are the lifeblood of this football program. Because, hey, remember when he kept complaining about how the lost revenue from 2020? Remember that? Where'd the lost revenue come from? Because they made more TV money that year than they ever had, remember? So where'd the lost revenue come from? No fans. There's no fans at the stadium that year.
No parking, no
Right.
concessions.
So you're hurting financially. Why? Because the fans couldn't be there. You may want to think about that before you start insulting them and talking about their misguided, the misguided passion.
Misguided
and sending them
passion.
condescending emails.
Yes.
Right? Because eventually you're going to get them to say, F it, I'm out. And you don't want to be there. And it's not fair to Marcus Freeman and the rest of those guys and the guys that are putting in the blood, sweat, and tears to make this team a championship team to have to deal with this crap. Because now we're not talking about them. We're talking about this crap. And that's what frustrates me. Brandon Plunger said, what's the biggest issue with Notre Dame football program that you'd personally like to see upgraded or fixed immediately? Recovery, rehab facilities, nutrition program, more support staff, something else. You got a thought on that, Sean? Because to me, it's everything. It's all encompassing. You got to start somewhere, and I think the somewheres for me are the parts of it that greatest impact the student athletes on a day-to-day basis. So for me, the first big project that I would have would be just repairing all the things that aren't working in the Goog. That can be done, but for me, it's the nutrition program, number one, and then enhancing sort of the mental health program and aspects of the football program and the athletics program, number two. Those would be the first two things that I think you can do like right now.
Yeah.
Like right now you can do those things
Yeah.
and commit to it. And if you're really serious about Like, here's the thing. If you don't want to pay top dollar for assistant coaches, I think that's dumb, but I get it. You don't want to do the NIL thing, I'm with it. You don't want to do the lowering academic standards, I'm with it. Why are you not willing to commit? Why does Notre Dame, you don't want to get into an arms race and have the crazy facilities? Okay, I understand. Don't agree, but I understand. But now you're going to tell me you're not willing to make sure that your athletes don't have the absolute best nutrition program, food program, all those. What's your excuse for not spending money on that? There's no excuse for that other than we just don't want to. That's it. Why do you not have the best nutrition program in the country? Those things that are student athlete oriented are absolutely the things that Notre Dame should prioritize, and they don't. Mental health, nutrition, recovery, academic support system, all those things should be absolutely the best in the country. You don't want to pay twice as much for an indoor facility to make sure it's as good as Bama's. I don't care. Fine. They have a practice field, and it's good. It's fine. But those other things should flat out be better than anybody else in the country, and there's no justification that you can make for not investing the money in those things. Coaching staff salary and all the things that go to supporting your support staff are all things that Notre Dame should take more pride in, saying we're going to do top dollar to make sure we have the best of the best, because those are the things that most directly affect the student athletes on an every single day basis. Nutrition, mental health, coaching, strength, all those things. No excuse not to have those be at the very top. No excuse. No excuse.
In that email, he literally told recruits, if you come here, you're at a fiscal disadvantage. That's what he said. We're not willing to match our competitors in expenditures. So now we're not willing to make you feel better. We're not willing to help you recover better. We're not willing to make sure that you have enough strength and energy, not only in weightlifting and training, but making sure that your nutrition connects with that. Because nutrition is just as important as what they go through with Matt Bayless. They work hand in hand. They work hand in hand. Look, if you don't want to build something that's new, state of the art, that's not only going to support the football team, but the lacrosse team, the baseball team, the women's basketball team, like it's for everyone. Yeah, everyone will focus on Notre Dame football, but you build it for everyone. You don't think Neil Ivy can recruit better and have a better team with a better facility? You don't think Mike Bray and his players wouldn't appreciate it?
But that's beneath them. That's the view. That's we're an academic institution. So what you're saying is you only strive for excellence in some aspects of your institution. Got it. Got it. Good to know. Good to know. I'm glad to know that. You only strive for excellence in certain aspects of it. Okay. All right.
And it
Glad we
shows.
figured that out.
It shows. It shows that's exactly what they do.
Right. And I promise you, if they made a pitch to their donors, here's the thing that so many of the donors at Notre Dame love the football program, and they love and more importantly, they love the young men in the program. If
Mhm.
you went to them and said, "Hey, we need to make sure we are the best in the country at these," somebody just said it, mind, body, and soul stuff at Notre Dame. For our student, we need to make sure that we have the best mind, body, and soul. And Michael Parks said that. Great way of saying that. That's your pitch. And we need an operating budget of $10 million to do this. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I'm just throwing out a big number. I promise you they could get that money raised pretty quickly if you said it's for the sports programs and we'll start with football. But it's going to extend to all the others. They could raise that money pretty easily.
You don't have to tell me. Yeah.
If you made the pitch, it's about the young people.
Yeah.
The donors at Notre Dame are awesome. They would do that in a heartbeat. A heartbeat. They would support that. To your point, Niall's out here doing this. Hey, let's help her out. And then here's the thing. Then the building can come later, Sean, when
Yeah.
your team start winning more championships, because you're not going to win championships because you have a great building. You're going to have a better chance of winning championships because your players are peak mental, physical shape, which they're not right now. Because you're now handcuffing Matt Bayless a little bit because now this teaching class thing is awesome. I love it. And I think it's a great team building thing. But the reality is they should have every meal prepared for them, if we're being honest.
Heck
Should.
yeah.
This happens in other
Absolutely.
big time programs, right?
Like, how do you look? How do you watch? If you're on YouTube, uh, if you're on YouTube, just go pull up Alabama and the barbershop and the facilities and everything that they have. Watch what Deion Sanders is making Colorado change
Right.
immediately and what he's adding or trying to add out there. It's like if you're going to compete, these are the things that you have to do. You flat out
Yeah.
have to do. And the fact that look, they definitely is what he said in his email. Yes, you invest in promoting the University of Notre Dame. I absolutely see the fruit from that. Yes, you invest in making these young men the most well-rounded on and off the field athletes in the country. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where it stops. That's where it stops. That's where it stops. Because you mentioned winning national championships.
Yep.
No.
Nothing about what you've done over the last week says anything about winning championships. Nothing.
Saying winning national championships is what you're trying to do, but in the same paragraph, a couple of sentences before that, saying we're not matching the expenditures of our competitors, that doesn't add up. That doesn't add up. You can't realistically, I'm sorry. Maybe that was a model 10, 15 years ago that you felt was feasible. Now, in today's game, you're putting your players, your coaches, and the rest of the program at a disadvantage. You just are. You are. So I don't know what to tell you. Like you said, and that doesn't mean anything because Texas has some of the best facilities in the world when it comes to their football program, and they struggle to win and have struggled to win.
Yep.
But you know what? They can look their coach in the face and say, "Hey, you can't say anything to us because you got the facilities, you got the booth, you got the money, you got the TV network. Like, what else do you want? You have everything here to win. You haven't gotten it done."
John, here's the other just silly aspect about this. You've got a big apparel deal coming up and a big shoe deal and a big TV deal coming up.
Yep.
It behooves you from a pure business standpoint to invest a little more now in the football program and the various programs, especially mainly football. Your TV contracts come from your football program.
Yes.
It behooves you to invest in your program a little bit more now to make sure that you're really good for the next 2-3 years in the football field,
Yeah.
which then give you a much bigger bargaining chip when it comes to the TV deal. That's what makes this even stupider.
You're right.
And I purposely said stupider instead of more stupid to show how stupid it is.
Yeah.
It's an unforced error is really what it comes down to. It's an unforced error, and they continue to happen. And there's no reason for it because the money's there if they really fought for it and really made it a priority. The money's there. The donors would all look at the building that they built onto the football stadium. Look at the indoor facility. Look, every project on campus, Notre Dame, Notre Dame's philosophy is we don't build anything until we've raised the money for it. Yet there's always something being built at Notre Dame.
Right.
The donors do such phenomenal work at Notre Dame. I know I have a good buddy of mine who works in the development office. They are some of the hardest working people on campus. And the crap they have to eat because of things that people above them do is amazing. And yet they still meet their goals every single time because the Notre Dame donors, which is a lot of alums, it's also the Subway alums, but the big donors are mostly Notre Dame grads, mostly. And they love their institution. They love the football program and they love the sports programs. And if you ask them, if you ask them, they would give you what you need. But you got to ask them. And that's crazy. That's the thing that's frustrating about it. You know what I mean? And somebody, like Matt said, they spent $400 billion for the Crossroads project. They didn't spend that. They raised $400 million for the Crossroads Project. That's the difference. And guess what? They stepped up. The donor class stepped up once again. And they would do it for the sports programs too, especially football. They flat out would. But the people that make those decisions haven't made it a priority. Because Sean, if it was a priority, it'd be done. Like the whole comment Brian Kelly made about the chef was a stupid comment. You're blaming somebody else for things, but he wasn't wrong that that's a need. My argument was that's not what kept you from winning.
Right.
You kept you from winning. You being gone for half the year kept you from winning. You keeping Brian Van Gorder on staff for 3 years kept you. You had a national championship roster in 2015, and you pissed that away. Not the chef, not the lack of a chef. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
You're the one that called Tommy Reese to do a rollout and throw the ball in the end zone against Tulsa instead of kicking a field goal. You know what I mean? Like that's on you, not the chef. You're the one that decided to run a jet sweep inside the 5-yard line against Northwestern to Chris Brown, who never carried the ball before. You're the one that decided to go for 2 when you were up 11 against Northwestern, not the chef, right? That's on you. However, it doesn't mean that things that he would use as excuses weren't legitimate excuses. There's no reason for Notre Dame not to have the best nutrition program in the country. Meaning we know what their bodies need. We're going to make sure they have the supplements they need. They're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner provided for them by the institution. Think about the money they make. What that football program makes for this university. Everything that they need to have the best of the best. And I don't give a rip about facilities, Sean. I'm not talking about that. Yes, you should have good facilities, but I don't need to have a building just as big and great as Alabama's. It'd be nice, but that comes next.
Well,
there's no excuse not to do the first part. That's my thing.
That doesn't serve the purpose, right? It's about location. You're right. I don't need you to chase Bama. I don't need you to give us everything to the exact centimeter that they have when it comes to putting a building together or edifice together. That's not what we're asking. We're asking for quality within the program. You need to improve the quality of the program.
Right.
It's bigger than a building. Improve the quality of the program. Winning will take care of the building. Like you pointed out, Brian, you can improve the quality of the program now.
Right.
You can improve what you already have now. If what you have currently is not at an elite level, come on. Improve that.
Right.
Be consistent in that. And then build on top of that.
That's about building up the young people.
Absolutely.
That allows them to play at peak physical, mental condition. And if you're not prioritizing that, everything else that you say you're about is baloney. And we've talked about that for a while, Sean. This isn't new for us because we're mad about what happened this week. This is just further evidence of it. That's the reality of it. Let's get to some more questions here. I don't want to spend the rest of the day on that. Archer 452, Josh Pate listed Bama, TCU, South Carolina, and Utah as 4 programs that could take a step back in 2023. Which 4 do you think could take a step back, and which 4 do you think could step forward? Let's address the ones that he mentioned first. I actually think Bama's got a chance to be a little better this year if they can figure out the quarterback situation because their talent on defense is loaded. And so I can't tell you they're going to take a step back because I don't see them losing 3 games.
No.
Like that would be a step back for me.
No.
I don't think that they're going to – I don't know if they're going to necessarily be a playoff team because I think there's some questions of quarterback. Man, their defense is loaded. Their offensive line returns a lot. They've got good skill. I don't see them being worse than they were last year. I disagree with that one. TCU's taking a step back because they're not going to play for the championship again, and they're going to lose a lot of key players.
Yeah.
South Carolina, I don't think I like what their coach is doing. Yeah, they lost some guys in the transfer portal, but they've landed some guys in the portal. They've recruited well. I think he's building a good thing there. And then Utah.
Getting Nicholas Harbor was huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Utah, I'd have to do a little bit more research into what they have coming back, but I did hear that Cameron Rising got hurt, and he may be out for part of the season next year. Maybe that hurts him a little bit. I don't think he's that good, to be honest with you. So, I don't think that's going to limit him. They've got a decent amount coming back that I'm aware of. They lose some pretty good players. Like losing Clark Phillips on defense is going to hurt them. They're going to be fine at tight end next year.
Yeah.
That's no disrespect to Dalton Kincaid. They're just loaded at tight end. But I'd have to do a little bit more research onto their roster to feel good about that one, Sean. I'll tell you a team who I think is going to take a step forward next year. This is going to surprise some people. In some ways, Clemson. I think Clemson.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Because I think the Garrett Riley move was good. I think they're going to be better at quarterback. They got a lot of guys coming back. I could see on offense. I could see Clemson being like 11-1, and they're either beating Notre Dame or having maybe their only loss to being the Notre Dame. Yeah. I could see that. Now I don't think it's going to be. They're not back to what they were.
Yeah.
But I think that stops the bleeding a little bit. That Garrett Riley hire stops the bleeding a little bit.
Yeah.
Some other teams that I could think could take a step back. Sean, you got any teams that could take a step back? I think Michigan's going to take a step back next year. That's the team I think take a step back.
I think Michigan, for me, still gets to that last game of the year with a chance to get to the Big Ten.
But they're not going to get in.
Yeah,
that's my thing. That's a step back for me.
Tennessee.
They're going to be good though.
Tennessee is a candidate for me.
Yeah,
because I just don't know Joe. I mean, could Joe Milton be on the Hendon Hooker track? I don't know. I mean, Josh Heupel's offense is going to give him a tremendous opportunity to be successful, but we don't know. They lose Cedric Tillman. They lost Tillman and Hyatt.
Jalen Hyatt, yeah,
to the NFL. Defensively, could they be better? I still think they're another year away, but I think they can take a step back. I definitely think they can take a step back. I look at a team like the season that Duke had. They're a team where you're like, man, you expect them to take that next step, and they can have a key injury or anything can happen. They end up being a game less than what they were this year. A team like that. Look, I'm not buying Oklahoma quite yet. I'm just not.
I do think they're going to be better than what they were last year, though.
Yeah,
they were 6-6 team. I think they're going to be better than that.
That's true.
I do think they're going to be better than that.
Who I think has a shot to take a step forward? I really think UCLA has a shot to take a step forward. I really do. If there's any quarterback that can come in and play as a freshman and be successful, it's Dante Moore.
Yeah.
It really is. And their offensive line is going to be good coming back. Their receiving core is going to be really good. Their receiving core was so good that they said no to what's the kid that ended up at Wisconsin?
CJ Williams. talking about for UCLA?
Yeah.
No, USC. CJ Williams.
He wanted to go to UCLA. UCLA said no.
Yeah, CJ Williams. Yeah.
So he's going to have talent to work with, and Chip Kelly really has kind of come around because you really look at their numbers. He's not as pass crazy as he used to be. He really has settled in and depended upon the running game there. They lose Zach Charbonnet. But like I said, the offensive line is going to be good.
The run game is generated by the scheme more so than Zach Charbonnet is a really good back. But I mean, Chip Kelly's been putting out running games with inferior backs to what he'll have this year. Tennessee's an interesting one, Sean, because I think Tennessee's problem is they peaked too early, which cost them to maybe lose some guys that they wouldn't have lost if they didn't peak so early. Because I think he hasn't had to. I mean, his first full recruiting class will be sophomores this year. That's it. So I think that could be a bit of an issue for them this year as well. I'm not a huge Joe Milton fan, to be honest. I mean, he didn't exactly play all that well in the first 2 games of the year, the 2 games he started.
Yeah.
Good kid and all that, but he didn't play that well against Clemson. Clemson kept shooting itself in the foot. If Clemson didn't turn the ball over and make dumb mistakes, they'd have beat Tennessee by 10 points.
That's a different game. Yeah, that's a different game. Especially early on. Yeah.
Right. And his other start was against Vanderbilt. So I'm just not a huge Joe Milton fan. They got to get their running game going. I think that's when Josh Heupel's offense arrives, it'll be more balanced than it was this year. I think he wants to be a guy that strives for a little bit more balance. I think he wants to look more like what Oklahoma's offenses were when Lincoln Riley was really rolling. Is where I think Josh Heupel wants to get to eventually. They just had to be more pass game oriented this year because they just didn't have the talent up front or at running back to really be that kind of offense. So maybe if their run game gets better this year, that might help them a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. I think a team that's going to I'm very curious to see what Oregon State's going to do this year with DJ at quarterback because
you expect them to take a step forward, right?
I do, but like he's
Slightly?
not very good, but he's still better than what they had.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, which
yeah.
is saying a lot. I'll tell you a team that I think is going to take a big step forward this year is Iowa.
Oh,
I think
that's
Iowa's going to be really good this year because they were an 8-win team last year with one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever
quarterbacks
seen in my
ever seen.
life.
Yes, yes.
Cade McNown. Cade McNamara may look like Cade McNown playing in that offense. I mean, you've got if he plays just like he did at Michigan in 2021, that Iowa
Mhm.
team's going to be really good this year.
Yeah,
Really good this year.
yeah. I
Even with
think
a bad offensive coordinator, Sean, because they're really well coached in a lot of ways, man. A lot of ways.
I think I'll be honest. I think Illinois is a candidate to take a step back. I
They
really
lost
do.
some really good players,
They
man.
lost some really good players
And they
and
won a lot of really close games
a
too,
really
man.
good defensive coordinator as well.
And the West is going to be better this year than it was last year, in my
I
opinion.
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You know, they
Yeah.
beat Iowa in a extremely low scoring game.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. You get teams like
Yeah.
Iowa, Minnesota to step up. Yeah.
I think Nebraska is going to be better. I think of all the new coach hires, I think Nebraska is one that's going to have the biggest jump. I actually do think they have talent. It's not great talent, but I think they have players. They were awful. I think they're a bowl team this year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go from 4-8 to like 10-2. I'm not saying that. That'd be quite the jump.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be a bowl team this year. I think they're going to be better. I think
Yeah.
they're going to be better.
And I
Yeah,
agree. Like Ryan, yeah, I already know because they have young defensive backs to be able to replace the
sure.
guys that they're losing. The talent won't be the problem. I'm still not sold on the quarterback,
The
but
offense
that's
is
a
the issue for me
transfer.
for Illinois because they won so many games with just smoke and mirrors, really, they show on offense, Sean.
Yeah,
And
and they
because the
still
West was bad. That's the other
yeah,
thing that helped Illinois is the West was bad.
yeah.
Yeah. The
They
West
lost
was
their
really
backup.
bad.
They really would have had a much better running game because they lost their backup running back who had a fantastic freshman season. He got messed up his knee early in the season. He'll be the main guy. They lose Chase Brown, um, but you lose. They lost a lot of leadership on that defense, like talent, especially up front. Yeah, on the back end, they lost a lot of leadership, and I just don't trust the quarterback, man. I just
Yeah.
don't. I just
Who
don't.
is their quarterback going to be? Is it so
He transferred from Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. The
yeah,
name
I'm
escapes me
not sure
right
who their
now.
quarterback's going to be. At Ole Miss, was it Jackson Dart? It wasn't Jackson
No,
Dart. He's still there, right?
no. Jackson Dart's still at Ole Miss.
It's their backup quarterback, transfer to Illinois.
Luke
Luke
Altmaier.
Atmeyer. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Somebody said Colorado should be better. I mean, they can't be worse. I mean, they literally would have to go
That's
0-12 to be worse. I mean, if they go 2-10 this year, they're going to be better, Sean. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Dion's going to have the immediate turnaround that people think they do because Dion is I don't care how many transfer. He's inheriting the worst Power 5 roster in college football, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
Like, he didn't get Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison and Travis Dye and the kind of caliber commits recruits that that Lincoln Riley got, right? But the difference is those guys stepped into a pretty decent roster at USC.
yeah,
The Travis Hunters and those guys, the good transfers he did get,
yeah,
they're walking into a really bad roster situation. And
yeah,
that's the difference. And their schedule is brutal next
yeah.
year. I mean, looking at their Sean, have you had a chance to look at their schedule? They start the season off at TCU.
They changed that.
Did they change it?
Yeah, they
Who
added a game before.
who are they playing?
I forget. It's like I think they're adding like an HBCU team or something like that. Dion talked about it.
Who did they drop?
No, they didn't. I forgot what they dropped. I think
They had
they
to have
added.
dropped somebody because they have 12 games.
They added. I know. Oh, they added someone before. TCU is going to be their second game because Deion Sanders
Okay,
was talking about it in interviews
gotcha.
during Super Bowl week. I forget the team they added and what changes were made on the back end, but they
Yeah.
added a game
Well,
before
their
TCU.
official schedule still has them playing first against TCU. So they haven't updated what that is going to be yet. So that'll be interesting. They'd almost like to have to add Hawaii, a road game at Hawaii. It's
Yeah,
about the only way that I can
in
think of
order to
without
do it.
dropping somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if
I,
they were to say, hey, we're going to play Hawaii in that week 0, that allows them to get a 13th game.
yeah,
So
I understand what the
yeah,
schedule shows. I'm telling you what has come out of Deion Sanders'
yeah.
mouth.
So apparently Bailey Brad said that whatever Dion was talking about got nixed, and they still have to play TCU to start. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. It'll be interesting.
Look,
And just because that one got nixed doesn't mean that they're going to try for something else,
they're going to
right?
try for
That's
something else
yeah,
because he doesn't want his first game to be TCU, and I don't blame him.
yeah. And then the second game's Nebraska.
Yeah,
So yeah, and then they also play. So then they get Colorado State at home. Then they're at Oregon, home against USC, at Arizona State, home against Stanford, at UCLA, home against Oregon State, home against Arizona, at Washington State, and at Utah. That's
yeah,
a brutal. They're not going to be that much better. They could be a whole lot better and still not have much of a better record. I mean,
facts.
yeah,
You know, a
that's the
team,
reality of it.
and I'm shocked I'm saying this. If the quarterback is right, Penn State can take a step forward.
Yeah, Aller's got that kind of potential as a quarterback.
If he is what most of us believe he can be,
I just wonder
with the
it's
two running backs they
yeah.
have.
My question, and they have some linemen coming back. That one tackle
Mhm.
decided to come back, which surprised me a little
Yeah,
bit. The one thing for me is I feel like Aller's more of a 2024 breakout as opposed to 2023 breakout. That's my only question. Because he's kind of a raw kid. But if Yurcich can get him going, then because like you said, they got skill talent. They lost
man.
Parker Washington, but I think Keandre Lambert still comes back, I believe. They've
Yeah,
got some younger guys that are kind of emerging. And every year they lose a receiver, and then they just Jahan Dotson leaves and Parker Washington steps up. Like they just
yeah,
kind of do that just every year. They do a
yeah.
nice job with that.
They do.
So they could be one. They could be one. Uh, then better means okay, they're already 10-2. It means they finally got to beat Michigan or Ohio State in one of
That's
those
the
games.
key.
That's
And
going to be the key.
I'm not
Right.
the biggest James Franklin fan, but I
Right.
think he has an opportunity. That offense, because I was
The
watching
Big
him in
Ten
the
is very
Rose Bowl.
manageable, Sean. It's a very
Absolutely.
manageable conference. There's 2 good teams in it along with them. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only 2 teams in your conference that are on your level talent-wise.
Yeah.
You know, now you got a talented quarterback. He's because Sean, you and I love his talent. We were talking about he's the guy Notre Dame should have gotten the 2022 class. I
Yep.
mean, love the kid's talent. Just raw.
Facts.
He's just raw. But the other thing, now that I'm thinking about your point, Sean, is because of that run game, they don't have to necessarily rely on him to carry the offense next year either.
No, they don't. They
To
don't.
that degree, yeah.
He can hand the ball off, go play action, passes that, pretty much are right in line with what he can do best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be very important of
Yeah.
how the offensive coordinator
Yeah.
works with that.
Yeah. And
Tight
somebody
ends are
talking
gonna
about
be
they lost
important as well.
Joey Porter Jr. Every year Penn State loses some cornerback
But
that's really good.
Joey Porter
But my
Jr. is
thing, you
really
got
like a
Kevin King
cover
coming
two.
back.
Yeah, yeah,
Every year they lose a corner that people think is going to be a loss, and then somebody else steps in, right?
yeah,
And so they don't put a ton of pressure on their corners. Ryan says Kalen King is better anyway, and I don't disagree. If
yeah.
Joey Porter Jr.'s name was Joey Jones Jr. and he was just his dad was a steel worker in Pennsylvania, I don't think people would have the same opinion of him as a player. He's a good player, but he's not a special player.
And
In
I
my
think
opinion.
Ryan would probably agree. Look, Porter Jr. had much better film last year than he did.
2021.
Yeah, his film. His film coming off that 2021, his game against Ohio State at Ohio State was like, okay, like to the point you felt like, oh man, if he takes a step forward, like this kid could be late first, maybe second round. And then, man, you watched the Ohio State game this year, it was just kind of like, uh-oh. Like,
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
James Franklin has talent, man. I don't know what the
Always.
excuses have been.
He can recruit. He just can't coach.
Man, he has talent.
All right, let's get some more questions. There's good questions. Got us going for a while. John A1, what were the major philosophical differences between the 2021 with Elson and 2022 defensive lines? I don't think there was a philosophical difference
Yeah.
that has to do with the defensive line coaches. That was more Al Golden. I think that they used the defensive line to attack a little bit more in 2021. I just think
Yeah.
they just didn't they just weren't necessarily coached all that well. They never struck me as like, boy, they're really using their hands great,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just don't think they were necessarily given the tools to go be successful. And we heard it was going to be better, hey, and it's it's teaching these new things. Well, they didn't know how to take those new things. And Isaiah Foskey, part of the reason he struggled early in the season, Sean, he's trying to implement all these moves and he didn't know how to use them and implement them. So I
You
don't
know
think it's a
what?
philosophical change. Just not as good of a coach,
I'm
and
cool
not the
with that.
let me say this, and not the buy-in
Yeah.
from the veterans of the new coach, which I
Yeah.
don't blame on Al Washington. They're,
Right.
the veterans did not just embrace him and say, "Hey, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt." It kept being, "Well, Elson did this and Elson did that," and I think that kind of hurt Al Washington in year one. So we'll see if he can if he can change it in year two. Now that he's going to have some younger guys that have only played for him, or
Yeah.
maybe didn't have the same affinity for Elston and all that. If they play a little better, I'm curious to
Yeah.
see that.
You nailed that. So
Yeah. I'm sorry, John. I interrupted you. I apologize. Super chat from John Bertucci. Is there any chance Jack Swarbrick is forced to resign? I'm completely insulted by that email. Is it Jack or Father Jenkins that is holding the program back? I say both. We've said this before. Sean, you know my stance on Father Jenkins. I have no use for Father Jenkins at this point in time. None.
let me ask you a question. Well, because whomever the father is at the University of Notre Dame, I think will still hold fast to certain values.
Sure.
And
And he should.
yeah,
You're a Catholic
so
school. You should.
yeah, so I don't know how much, maybe you get a different father that is has a little bit more that's a little bit more lenient towards the athletic programs and the athletic director doing what's right
I don't think
and
it's
just
leniency, Sean. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. Please.
no,
I
no,
apologize.
that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
I don't know because I'm looking at it from
Yeah.
a person
It's a
that's holding
lack
a
of
position.
leadership. It's a
Okay.
lack of leadership. It's a lack of vision. And I've had some friends of mine who are like guys that are heavily involved in these politics of the institution and stuff.
Hmm.
And then you watch different things. It's just an
Yeah.
utter lack of leadership, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example. And this isn't a political statement. This is again just a lack of leadership. During the whole COVID stuff, Notre Dame is still forcing certain things on student athletes or students that most schools are not anymore, but that's a different conversation for another day. But Jack Swarbrick has this, or Father Jenkins has this thing where like students have to be masked all the time and they get in trouble if they don't. And he had this really nasty email of like what happens if they're not. And then he goes to the ceremony for the Supreme Court Justice, Amy
Hmm.
Coney Barrett. And it's fine if he goes there. I mean, she's a
Yeah.
Notre Dame person. He should be there to support her. He's like going around not masked. And it's just like, I don't think the students should have been masked.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be masked. But if you're going to demand that they do it, the healthiest, like the least prone to have this issue on the planet, why aren't you doing that when you're in some foreign place, from where you're at? A foreign place being
Yeah.
like in DC.
Yeah.
And you just see stuff like that all the time. It's do as I say, not as I do. No vision. No. Hey, here's what we're doing. We are going to do these things. We're going to do those things. We're going to make sure that we're striving to be this. It's just an utter lack of leadership, in my opinion, and that's been true for me for a while. And so then that lack of leadership then leads to certain people in positions of authority just
Yeah.
kind of running roughshod and not having any accountability. So whoever the new priest is going to be, don't sacrifice your values as an institution. You should. Matter of fact, I think you sacrifice them too much right now. If you're going to ask my opinion. But the other part of it is it's just have a vision of excellence
Hmm.
that you demand from every department. And I think that's what's lacking right now. And so that's kind of my thing. I want to see a president and a new father in place that says, no, we're going to have a very clear vision of how we're going to be excellent at everything that we do. And there's going to be a greater sense of accountability for the people that don't meet that standard. And here's the different metrics that are going to go into why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering,
Yes.
like, how much can you really lay at the feet of whomever holds that position
Yeah.
moving
A
forward?
lot. I
You
mean, that's
know,
why Father Ted was so impactful because he said, "No, this is what we're going to do,
yeah,
and we're going to live up to a certain standard, and we're going to strive for excellence and all those kind of things." So yeah, the president can hold a. It's like with any head of a company, right? The person at the top, their success has a lot to do with their ability to lead.
yeah, yeah,
And if you don't lead, then someone's going to step into that vacuum of leadership and
yeah,
do it for you. And it may
yeah,
not be somebody that you want to do that, right?
yeah.
And so that's my thing is the president of Notre Dame still holds a great deal of authority and impact.
You know what the irony of this? Anywhere you go in this country, anywhere you go in this country, I guarantee you, whatever state, whatever major city, the private Catholic institutions in that area hold football in the highest of esteems.
Mhm.
And they're usually the best programs in that area. The best. So I'm trying to figure out why excellence does not flow the same way
Right.
at the most prestigious private Catholic institution in the United States.
Yeah.
That for me is a bit shocking
Yeah.
because it holds true, particularly on the high school level throughout the United States, no matter where you go.
Yep.
So
Sean, I believe I was somebody made this point too. I do believe Jack Swarbrick is one of the highest paid athletic directors in America. By the way,
mhm,
Mister, we're not going to pay coach. We're not going to pay top dollar for coaches. I'm
I
curious if he
got
might take a paycheck or pay cut to put his salary on par with where his coaches' salaries rank.
yeah.
And it's gotten a lot better. Don't get it twisted. It's gotten a lot better. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I thought. Tyler Evans says, Mr. Davis, what do you think of the Justin Fields comments about the Chicago weather?
He's right.
What did he say? I didn't hear it.
He basically said it's a disadvantage to quarterbacks, especially as you go into the months of November, December, and January. It's absolutely it's horrible. It's horrible. And hopefully going inside, once they get through with this project that I think the projection is 28, 29 season for it to be operational. Everything goes right. Right now, they're in the funding process, right? They bought the property, they bought the land, they have the specs, they have the drawings. Now it's just about funding, and you know that's going to come across. It comes down to us paying the bill, of course, right?
Yep.
It comes down to us as Cook County residents being taxed in some way, form, or fashion to make sure that the building gets done. So once he goes inside, it will be an advantage. But look, the stadium's right off the lake. It's literally right off the lake. And when it gets cold, the wind is crazy. It's whipping around the stadium, and it's a disadvantage. So he didn't say anything disrespectful. He's right. Name the greatest quarterback in the Bears history. Name just think about it. Quarterbacking at Soldier Field is extremely hard. It's extremely hard. It really is. You look at the Bears quarterback record book and you'll laugh when you look at everyone else's record book for quarterbacks in the NFL.
Hmm.
You will chuckle. You will flat out chuckle. Look at the wide receiver records. I think Johnny Morris literally just still holds records in the Bears record book for quarterbacks. It's laughable. But yeah, it makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. So he was spot on. He was spot on.
All right, let's get to some more. We got a super chat here from Detroit Hunter. Brian, I want to give a shout out to all the Notre Dame media in general, and in particular for IB. No free passes given. Go Irish. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Mhm.
that very much. Yeah, we don't, that's not how we roll. You know that. Brandon Pleasure says, "What's the biggest issue with Notre Dame football?" We already talked about that one a little bit earlier. It's like, Ryan, you got one job, man. One job. Scotty Hoyland said the same offense that goes off against North Carolina flounders against Stanford. This seems to have happened each of the last few years. How can Jared Parker raise the floor of the offense to avoid very poor games? Sean, that's actually, I'm writing an article that's going to come out tomorrow. That is the number one thing that Jared Parker needs to fix is consistency.
Okay.
And honestly, the thing that you do to fix that is it's consistency in how you go about your business every day. I'm a big believer that consistency on the football field comes from you have to breed an attitude of consistency in everything that you do. You've got to be consistent in your meet times. You have to be consistent how you go to work. You have to be consistent in your demands. You have to be consistent in your preparation. And part of that's timing, like schedule wise. Like you want them thinking a consistent level, but it's also about the attitude, the demeanor. It's also about having a very fundamentally sound football team that you have certain things that you believe in that don't require. Like I think last year's team was fundamentally sound in a lot of ways on offense, but the problem was, Sean, there was a level of complexity to what they did that certain players couldn't execute that level of consistency. If you have a little bit more of a foundation of, hey, we're going to do some RPOs, we're going to do some things that put these guys in position to their talent. It's more about their talent. So it's number one, lay a great foundation of good fundamentals and toughness and all that. And then number two, make sure that your system is geared towards playing more to their strengths than, being more scheme oriented. And this is just a general statement. And I think we'll see more of that. Creating more easy wins in an offense are also important things as part of that too. So I think those are the things that you do is it's a level of consistency. And then I think the last piece, Sean, is big, and I'll let you speak on this one. I don't think that this Notre Dame football team on offense, especially the last couple of years, was an overly confident football team. It was just easy to see, especially in 2022. And I don't really care to get into why I think that is, but I think that's something that Jared Parker has to address is there's a severe lack of confidence, and you could see it against Ohio State. I mean, from that moment on, they played hard, but there was a lack of confidence in, okay, what am I really supposed to do here? And I think that needs to get fixed.
I think they played uptight. And I think you'll see a much looser team under Jared Parker, with a lot of young players getting opportunities. And I think you're going to see, like I said, a different energy. I think the players are going to have a different energy, So I expect the players to carry the day with the improvements. Honestly, we might honestly say, you know what? Let's wait because, like, man, okay, they had Sam Hartman last year. Now let's see what Jared Parker does in year two with Tyler Buckner and Kenny Minchie and the guys that he has to develop. Because Sam Hartman came pretty much as a finished package, and you expect him to elevate things the way Jack Cohn kind of elevated things when he got here with his maturity and his ability to do certain things within the offense and understand the offense. So that goes without saying. It's fair to say, we'll really find out about Jared Parker in totality. We'll find out about him immediately, who he is and what he is as an OC. But I think you'll continue to learn about him, as things go on and he starts to deal with the quarterbacks that were, you know, recruited here, needed to be developed, brought up. And that goes with Gino. I call him Gino G. I don't want to be disrespectful, but that's my, you know, the quarterback coach now is going to be there. So what'd you say?
I said you don't want to have to say Gaduli a million times. I get it.
Well,
I understand. It's not an easy name. Yeah.
That's part of it. But no, seriously, I think, and I talked about this yesterday. I think the combination of him with the quarterback coach and the OC is much better, and they'll still be able to coach tight ends with a combination of a lot of people, whether it's GAs helping, you know, I, tight ends will be fine. I like the combination of having Gaduli and Jared Parker there, and
I'm gonna say this.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, Sean. No, go ahead. Because
No,
I was going to say
I,
something different onto it. I thought you were done. Sorry.
yeah. I just want to point out to, all the people who are bringing up Cleveland and Green Bay as far as cold weather quarterbacks. Go look at the record of Brett Favre and their in that offense in cold weather games in the playoffs and Aaron Rodgers and talk to me about it. Talk to me about how Aaron Rodgers looks in January of the playoff. How great is that passing attack? in Lambeau when the Giants have walked in there and spanked them, when the 49ers have walked in there and spanked them twice. Go look at it. Just go look at the records. That's all I'm saying.
Who was the first quarterback to beat the Packers in Lambeau in a playoff game? Do you remember who that is?
Man, you're taking me way back.
Not that far back.
The first quarter, was it Michael Vick?
Yep.
It was
Good
Mike.
job.
I remember that
Good
game.
job. Yeah.
I remember that game.
Yep.
I remember that game. So it's like, look.
Along the lines of what we just discussed too, I think Katie nailed this here. Katie Keever says, seems like Lorenzo Styles needs that confidence boost big time. Parker being a wide receiver guy should hopefully help that as well. That's a very key thing, because I remember Ryan kept talking like he's got a chance to be the guy and he should be the number one receiver.
Yeah.
And the talent was there, and he played with zero confidence all year.
Yeah.
So yes, if they can get Lorenzo Styles going along with Dion and Tobias and all the Jaden Thomas, I mean, yes, this offense. This is what I get excited about, and this is why they needed to get the offensive coordinator hire right, and hopefully Jared Parker is that guy. It's because the talent is not the problem next year. It will not be the problem, especially now that you got a trigger man that's an experienced veteran guy. Now you've got two trigger men that are really talented.
It's easy. For me, I honestly believe Sam Hartman makes it because it's not easy. People coaching at this level at a program like this is not easy. But having Sam Hartman, it helps. It helps the situation. And if you're going to step in as a first-time offensive coordinator, by all means, step in with Sam Hartman as your quarterback and Tyler Buckner as your backup. By all means, like, I trust you. Jared Parker feels better about his quarterbacks than Mike Bobo does. I can tell you that.
Bro, there's a chance that next year that Kenny Mincher's your fourth-string quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
And end of sentence.
End of
you know what I mean? Sean, I got to bring this up. I got to ask you this question from Rob Thidoff. This is phenomenal. I don't even want to show it because I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
Rob Thidoff says, Brian and Ryan, and we'll say Sean, what piece of literature is a greater work of fiction? Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, or Jack Swarbrick's email release yesterday?
Oh man!
Now do you know why I didn't pull it up and show it to you?
I'm not Rob. I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment, and I'm going to go with Jurassic Park.
Okay, I'm going to go with The Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
I'm going to go with Jurassic Park, but
very, very well done. Very, very well done.
Yes, we have to ask Coach Gino. Do we have to put the Gaduli on it, or can we just kind of say Gaduli? Ryan might know. Is that we have to put some oomph on that? Gaduli.
Yeah, he's from Kentucky, so we're saying Gaduli. Okay.
Okay. You just want to say Gaduli like that.
My wife and I have had this battle in our lives before, right? Where she's Italian. She grew up in New York City till like she was 4. Like her New York accent was so bad she had to take like speech therapy when she moved to California, right? Because they couldn't understand her.
Right.
And but now she just sounds like, you can't tell she's from New York. But then when she says things are like Italian words, she puts like this really crazy Italian, like ricotta.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, there's no G in ricotta, but the way she's like, it's Rigolt. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not. Look, here's the bottle. Ricotta. You know what I mean? Ricotta. So I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So Ryan said the same thing. I'm like, no, it's ricotta. I'm like, I learned to spell things out and sound things out in high school, right? So my Irish self was like, what are you talking about? Rigolt. I'm like, it's ricotta. You know what I mean? So she'll do, and she doesn't sound Italian at all. Yeah. She looks Italian in the summer.
Yeah.
But she doesn't sound Italian at all. But then when she says things like that, it's like, who are you? It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, man? So that was great. So yeah. So Ryan, I'm going to wait till all the, as far as recruiting visit questions, I'll let you address those in a recruiting mailbag on Monday. But we will get the second part of John Leahy's question, which is, did you go away from John's question? There's something about what's better that was not a recruiting question. So John Leahy, Ryan Roberts is 100% to blame for why your question didn't get answered. It was a little right before the 104 mark, Ryan, is where that question was, because it was right before the one from Brian Hockney. So John Leahy had a question. I'm going to see if I can just quickly find it here. Man, y'all have put a lot of questions in there today. I'm like, it's like I've gone like through like 15 like flicks of the mouse here, Sean, and I'm still not there. So you guys a lot of great questions today, everybody. John Leahy, here we go. John says, what is a better mascot, the Pelicans or the Winged Beavers? That's an easy one, John. That's
easy.
Winged Beavers.
Winged beavers.
That's not a real thing.
Yeah.
You might as well call them the unicorns, but I'm sorry, a winged beaver is way cooler than a pelican.
Sounds better.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's a totally fake thing, but it sounds like I'm a winged beaver.
The mascot would be scary. Have you seen like this Ocean Spray commercial where the lady is scared of a clown, but she drinks the cranberry juice and it tastes the same, and she walks up to the clown and kicks the heck out of him?
Yes.
That would be like most people would look at that winged beaver mascot and probably want to do that.
Yes. That's a good one. It's a good one. All right, so now we'll go to Brian Hockney. So if y'all want to ask recruiting questions about like talent, thoughts, stuff like that, we'll gladly answer those. But Ryan's definitely the guy to answer as far as like when will visits happen. So we got Brian Hockney says, with all the offers going out, do we stop recruiting at wide receiver, D-line, cornerback if we hit our numbers, or do we save scholarships to first say Justin Scott and Caleb Beasley? Look, guys like that will always have a spot.
They have a spot.
Right? Like Justin Scott, you could sign 5 D tackles, and if Justin Scott decides he wants to come, you take him, right? So it's a good question, Brian. They always, it's like if they want to take 3 receivers, and they get 3 commitments from receivers, and Ryan Wingo still wants to talk to Notre Dame, you're still recruiting Ryan Wingo. No questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
No questions asked. So yes, absolutely, you'll do that.
This is. Let's see, because Ryan will give us a thumbs up. Best player, Justin Scott or Beasley?
Oh, it's Justin Scott.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
And that's I love Justin Scott. Caleb Beasley, he's really good. He's really good.
Justin Scott has traits that are just rare for a guy his size. Number one, even though he's raw, I'd say Caleb Beasley's a little bit more advanced right now, technically.
Mm-hmm.
But that size, speed, athleticism combination is very rare. And then the second part is he plays a more premium position for me.
Okay,
like, give me an elite D tackle in a pretty good corner over an elite corner and a pretty good D tackle. Right, you're good either way, but that's kind of where I would go.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And so, but they're both excellent players.
You feel the same way,
Yeah, he agrees with me.
Yeah,
but Ryan has already stated publicly that he's always going to agree with me. So, we're only going to see it. Ryan will give us a thumbs up if he agrees, or a thumbs down. And so when I said that, he gave me a very hard thumbs down on that one. So, we got Jaywick 13. Who would you say is the greatest head coach in Notre Dame sports, not just football history? No big if you say it's a football coach. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to go against Frank Leahy, in my opinion. I know Newt Rockne gets all the love. I mean, what Frank Leahy did. I mean, you had a 4-year stretch where you didn't lose a single game. I believe Frank Leahy won more championships. I could be wrong on that, but he won. I thought 4 championships, and I thought Newt won 3. Newt is the legend because he was so much more than just the football coach. I mean, he was the transformative figure. The things he accomplished were just amazing. But Leahy won 4 championships. Newt won 3. Leahy also had to deal with the fact that they missed 2 seasons right in the middle of when he was really doing well because of the war. So they didn't have seasons in 44 and 45. So I'd probably go Leahy, but I think that's very debatable.
I would throw Muffet McGraw on the ballot. Sure. I really would, because what she did for that women's program was absolutely amazing. It really was.
2 national titles, right? 2 national titles, a bunch of Final Four appearances.
Yeah, she brought it to life. To the fact that when you started paying attention, because you have football, basketball, NBA, a lot of things going on, right? And then all of a sudden it gets to tournament time. That's really when you start locking in on women's basketball for most of
Mhm.
us. Because I mean, you catch a game every now and then if it's top teams that are on national TV. But like last night, I missed the Notre Dame game, but I ended up catching uh, Ole Miss and LSU.
Mhm.
And I didn't know Ole Miss was as good as they were. And I knew LSU had just lost to South Carolina in a big time
Battle of
matchup,
unbeatens, yeah.
unbeaten. So I just watched the game and I'm like, yo, this is a really good game. But yeah, you always felt like Notre Dame was 1, 2, or 3 in the
Right.
country. Like every year, it's like, okay, they're going to be right
And there was
there.
a period of time where, like, they were about the only team that could beat UConn
Yeah,
during a stretch there with
yeah,
Skylar and some
yeah,
those
yeah.
times. So, yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good call.
Once you won a
Love
championship
for
at
this.
2 different eras too,
She
right?
did.
I
She
mean,
did.
that's yeah, that matters. That matters. All right, let's see, is Drake with the football team right now or baseball? Football, right?
Football.
I don't think he's playing
Yeah.
baseball as a freshman, I don't believe. Is he, Sean?
I have
Is he
not.
playing baseball this semester? We'll have to reach
I've
out.
not asked them about that because training for both are going on right now because they
Mhm,
start
right.
the season
Baseball
in
team's
what
about
a
to
couple
start, what, next
start.
week, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're already
yeah.
practicing. I think their first games again. The softball team's already started
Yeah.
games.
He might be redshirted for baseball purposes or just not playing like you said the freshman year to go through spring football, right? Because to play baseball would mean he would miss some time with spring football,
Right.
and I don't think they're going to let that happen.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Yep,
Wow,
that's good.
somebody said baseball plays today.
Is they kick off season today? Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. I'm really looking to see what Coach Stifler can do, man. I'm gonna start
Mhm.
following the softball team because they're doing some really good things right now
They're
too,
doing some
man.
good
They
things
they,
as
they,
well.
they were top 25 a lot last year, and I
Good,
think they made the NCAA tournament last year. I think I could be wrong on that, but yeah,
good.
doing a really nice job. Really nice job. I just like winners. That's my thing. I like
Yeah,
winners, and I like programs that win. I mean, and you'd have to. I mean, if you're, I couldn't even tell you who the fencing coach is, but they've won a million national championships. So you know, you have to. But I just don't think anybody cares. So, all right, let's get to the next one here. All right, Ryan, where you at? Tony Stengel. So, do you think all the outside negativity and noise the past few weeks will actually give this team motivation and give them an us against the world mentality? It needs to. For me, I
but
absolutely look, Sean. And I said this yesterday. I'm a believer in any chance you get you get to try to put motivational material to where you feel disrespected. I think football and basketball are the two sports where being disrespected can have the greatest impact on how you perform
mhm,
if you know how to channel it the right way.
yeah,
And like yes, I think it could. I hope it does, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'd say it directly like the administration screwed us over, but more of like a hey, there's a lot of people that are doubting us. There's a lot nobody has our back. We're here to do this because of the man next to you. That's
yeah,
what we're here for.
yeah.
Yeah, I would do that.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I said it a little bit earlier in the show. They definitely will come in with a different energy,
You know.
right? I definitely feel like they're coming in with a different energy. And we've seen Notre Dame teams recently under Brian Kelly have the us against the world mentality. So that's kind of the brotherhood that exists at Notre Dame. Like most, they'll tell you they know the things that they have to fight against.
Yeah.
So
All right, let's go to the next question here. Brian Charles Lynch asked Brian, on your initial list for OC, you had Joe Brady and Joe Moorhead near the top, but you never heard their names in the interview process. What happened with those two? They weren't necessarily near the top. I mean, it was just a group of guys, and I believe I put them in alphabetical order. I could be wrong on that. They talked to Joe Brady. There was definite conversations there, but he just didn't want to leave the NFL. Joe Moorhead was never a real strong candidate, in my opinion. There was never the interest from Notre Dame in him beyond just an initial list of guys they had some interest in. It never really got
mhm,
past that. I don't know why. I just don't think he was a guy that Notre Dame was necessarily
and yeah,
pining for at this point in time. So, yeah, that's where that was. Mex Ott, shout out to IB for all stuff you had to deal with the past week. Thank you for that. Does our recruiting board change at all? And who or where would you like to see the staff invest more time on? I think the linebacker coach, aka Al Golden, needs to spend less time on offering a million kids and actually recruiting some of those kids. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Ryan, go to the next question.
Irish A12 says, if you were hiring an analyst, would you rather have a young and hungry guy that shows great potential to be a future coach or an experienced former coach who is looking for a temporary landing spot? I'd say a little bit of both.
Oh, boy.
You know, I think there's advantages to both. I think an analyst needs to have a little mix of both. I like the energy that a young guy brings. I think an older guy is really good for this future for the scouting stuff. I think that's where a veteran analyst could really help you is with the scouting is just being able to kind of I'd put if I had David Cutcliffe or some young former quarterback on my list, I would trust David Cutcliffe's future scouting of the next two opponents more than I would trust some guy that I don't know. So I like a nice blend. I think there's advantages to both. So I'd have a nice little blend of both. You good, Sean? Have you come down from my comment yet?
I bet I didn't know you didn't like the fish in a barrel theory or technique of
Well, I mean, it's
recruiting.
like it's you have to expand your board, but at some point in time, you have to actually start recruiting some of those guys and create a priority list that you're actually like in on. That'd be great. That'd be great. All right, let's go to the next question here from Mr. 2.0. Do you agree with me that things may still work out for the best in the sense that the recent backlash will push the administration to pay for a quality and proven O-line coach? I hope so. I said this the other day, Sean. If I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm using this embarrassment to my advantage.
Oh,
If I need to buy out a coach on my current staff to move on to somebody else, you better freaking pay it. If I need to do a buyout to get the best O-line coach in the country, you better pay it. Like whatever I need from a coaching standpoint, you need to pay because you all don't want it to get out again that I was unwilling to. You were unwilling to pay for the next coach because you've already. And here's the thing, and this is where Jack kind of screwed himself too. He said it ain't about the money. It wasn't about the money. So you've proven if you're Marcus, you know who should be most happy about the message that was sent out yesterday is Marcus Freeman, because like you just said, you'll do whatever. Money's not an issue. You're about winning championships. Okay, well, I need 1.5 million to buy out this guy to do this.
Yep.
Right. Well, you said it's not about the money. You said you'll pay it. Right. So we know what the number is. This is what we need to do. Well, I need this guy to be the best coach of this position in the country, and I need to be able to pay this. Well, you said it's not about the money, and you want to win championships, right? Do you really want it to get out that you're not willing to do this to pay for this coach? May not be a good idea.
Right.
So you just gave him some ammunition to go, hey, I need to hire this analyst. I need a perfect example. We've had a lot of questions in the chat, and Ryan, you can erase these now. But there's questions about, what would you do for analysts? And there's one name for sure that I would look at for an analyst, and that's David Cutcliffe. I mean, but that's going to cost you a pretty penny now. Hey, you wouldn't give me the $2.8 million for the buyout for Andy Ludwig. I'm promoting Jared Parker, who's going to make way less money than I would have paid for that. You can at least give me some of that back to make sure that I can make David Cutcliffe real happy to be at Notre Dame for the next few years to help us as an analyst, right? You better darn sure help me, give me some of that money because I need to buy out this coach so I can go something over here, and we need to do that. So if Marcus Freeman plays this right, there will not be a hire he wants to make over the next couple months that he can't make if he plays this right. Because imagine if we found out that Marcus Freeman wanted to do something to do a buyout to get a coach to fire someone, and then Jack Freeman said, no, we're not going to give you that for that position, coach.
Yeah.
That wouldn't go well. He is definitely not working Jack is not working from a position of strength right now when it comes to that high road of coaches. So, yeah. And now that I realize that he's the highest paid athletic director in the country, that's going to be a little bit even more a little bit more ammunition to this one. Scott Yerbick says, getting off topic, you guys got any vacation plans this summer? Man, I can't tell you last time I took a vacation. I hope so.
You know what's a vacation?
Not having to work for 5 hours?
Anytime Brian Driscoll has to drive to a game on the East Coast, that's a vacation.
Yeah.
Like the drive and the day he gets there, that's pretty much the vacation.
Away, pretty much.
And then he goes to the game and it's back to work.
It's pretty much. Or I go to my parents' house for a vacation.
Right.
And I'm doing a podcast every day. I'm still putting out the same amount of content. I hope that changes soon because I just hope it does. But we'll see. We'll see. What's the next question? Sean, do you have any vacations coming up? That was for both of us.
Yeah. We're going for for my anniversary and birthday, which is
I know that. They don't know that.
Yeah. we go somewhere. My wife is talking about going. She wants to go somewhere like to a cabin or somewhere. So maybe Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or somewhere like that.
Sorry, there's this comedian that has a really funny skit about Gallenberg.
Does he? You
Yeah,
have to send it to me.
I will. I will. It's funny. All right, what's the next question? Call me Ty. If the admin felt bad about the Ludwig situation, they don't. What's one splash move they could do to make you think, okay, they messed up, but they made up for it with this? Oh man, I got two.
Mm.
One is obviously an offensive line hire, big splashy offensive line hire. But the other one is do whatever you have to do to have the result of being Al Golden goes back to the NFL. Whether that's he gets a job or there's a polite nudge. If you got to buy him out, you got to buy him out. And then there's an unemployed guy that has been coaching in Madison, Wisconsin the last few years that I would say go pay what you need to pay to get him here. That would be my splash hire.
The Al Golden theme of this show is fantastic.
I have a great deal of respect for Al Golden as a man. I think he's a really good guy. He's a really good person. I just don't think he's cut out for the college game anymore. And he's shown me nothing to make me think that. I think he's an NFL guy at this point in time. I don't think he has that same drive for coaching the entire roster, the same drive for developing young people the way that they need to be developed as college players. And I don't think he has a system in place that is going to fit a college game, in my opinion. And he doesn't grind on the recruiting trail the way you need to. Now Jim Leonard isn't a recruiting grinder either, but he's a splashy name, and he's a much better college defensive coordinator right now.
Man,
much better defensive.
Say that again
right now. So that would be splashy. T Gun says Sean is 4 steps without a dribble traveling.
In most rule books,
not in the NBA. Not when LeBron's got the ball.
In most rule books, but you have to. Well,
I'm kidding about that. I just think that's an awful LeBron fan.
This is what is amazing because they have all of these trainers now for kids, like your parents are taking their kids to these dribbling trainers and all this stuff, and they're actually teaching kids, on their step backs as long as you don't have your hand on the ball, especially if you're stepping back with a crossover, and you can take as many steps as you want, which technically is true. So these things are actually being taught. I don't know if they're being executed. I know he's probably talking about Olivia Miles' game-winning shot last night, but that move she made is par for the course. And women's basketball, college basketball, men's college basketball, it's the game now. So, I mean, heck, when Allen Iverson came in with his crossover, it was carries. No one called it.
Except Mr. Corruption. You ever see that thing that they did? Yeah. I gotta ask. I'm gonna read this question, Sean. I'm bringing one up, Ryan. This is from Omar Austin. So, Sean, are you growing out your hair for a Superfly 2018 Young Jock perm?
No, I don't. No chemicals in this hair right here. It is all natural products right now. I am growing it out. I use a sponge on a daily basis to kind of curl it, twist it. And I'm actually liking it, man. My wife just screamed at me this morning because I used her products. I used all of her shampoo and conditioner. And she was like, "You didn't go replace it." I'm like, "You're right." So I gave her the money to go replace it. That's a new problem that's emerging in the household.
15 years have yet to have that conversation yet because I've pretty much had this hairdo the entire marriage that I've had. I like low maintenance. We did have a super chat here from Tyler Smith. Did you see Ohio State canceled their home and home with Washington? They're saying it's because USC is joining the Big Ten. Sounds like an excuse to me. I absolutely agree with you. Why are you canceling a non-conference game because of a conference game? Makes no sense to me.
No, I don't think that's it.
Yeah. I think it's because they just watched what
Washington did. Right. You can say what you want. That's not the reason.
I did hear some people float that the other reason might be because there's talk that Washington may be one of the 2 teams that they bring into the Big Ten. So, get ahead of that now. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but that's something I've heard as well. All right, what do we got next, Mr. Roberts? We got Stephen Martin. Shout out to the IB crew and the IB Nation. I would have gone insane suffering those last 5 days on my own. Dude, I'm with you. I think you're not alone in that one, man. I think there was a lot of people that got vented. Now, I said what I need to say today. I'm ready to move on from it because it is what it is, right? I have no control over it changing. Okay. But yeah, I'm not holding back now, but I just don't want it to be something that we discuss every single show and every single day. It's like I'm ready to move on and start focusing on the football players and the football team. So that's kind of where. Hey, Ryan, remind me at the very end. There's a question that I want to ask that's not in the chat, and then I do want to read. I was finally given the okay to read from the former player about Jared Parker. Let's get to the next one from Robert Bishop. Do you think any of the big name recruits, Keon Keeley, Peyton Bowen, Dante Moore, Jay Lamar, Ronan Hannafin, that Notre Dame lost out on will start to play early for their respective teams? Would they have at Notre Dame? I'll be shocked if Keon and Peyton and Dante aren't playing early. I don't think Lamar and Ronan will. But I mean, I'll be shocked if Keon, Peyton Bowen, and Dante Moore aren't playing this freshman, if not starting. I mean, maybe Keon doesn't start because Bama's loaded there, but he's good enough to start.
Yeah,
I think Peyton Bowen will have a shot to start, and Dante. I'll be shocked if Dante's not starting at UCLA at some point in time this year. Shocked.
and the track record of Bama is they get their freshman defensive lineman ready to go.
Yes,
at some point during the first year.
Now Dante would not have played as a freshman would not have started as a freshman at Notre Dame unless Tyler Buchner got hurt. Because if you bring in Dante, you're probably not bringing Sam Hartman, right? But I don't think he would have beat out Tyler Buchner. Maybe you do. I don't know. But
that's an interesting question.
Yeah, but I don't think he would have started as a freshman at Notre Dame either way. It would have been Sam Hartman or Tyler Buchner. Keon definitely would have played a bunch if not started, and I think Peyton Bowen would have played a bunch if not started. But the other two wouldn't have played as freshmen here or there. So yeah, good question, Robert. Keita says, do you think think duo will be run less and there will be more variety in the run plays with Parker's and OC? Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. I think we'll see more of an inside-outside zone mix with counter and duo as also parts of the run game. So yes, I think we'll see a more balanced concepts, more balance in the run game from a concept standpoint, a little bit more mixture and diversity. Now there may be games where we're killing somebody with duo.
Yeah.
And so you say, hey, we're going to stick with this. That's what you may say as an OC. Yeah. Or man, this just isn't a good look this week and we're not going to run it. But yeah, you're going to still see duo, but you're just not going to see it as the dominant run play, I don't believe, as it was this year.
And I think that benefits both running backs.
Yes, and especially Chris Tyree.
With their trajectory, especially if they're looking to go to the next level next year. I definitely think that benefits them both.
Yep, no question. Brandon Plesner says, is there any info or rumblings about Prince Colley changing positions or playing some DL this year, similar to the move Junior Tuihalamaka made? God, I hope not. I haven't heard anything like that. I've heard rumors about Prince Colley, but it's not about changing positions. So, yeah, I haven't heard anything like that. Scott L., did Jared Parker meet with Gino Guidugli and get to weigh in on the hire? Or was it all done by Freeman? Will Parker have any say at all in who the new O-line coach will be? Yes and yes. So Marcus Freeman very much believes in guys that have coached that guys in position from a coaching standpoint will have a say in assistant coach hires.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, because of the previous relationship with Jared and Marcus, Jared may trust Marcus more. Hey, you believe in this guy. You know what I want. And you say that's the guy. All right, cool. I'm assuming that you're correct. Maybe something like that happens.
Yeah.
But because of the unique nature of their relationship, being further back than just some OC you just hired, perhaps that. But yeah, if Jared Parker wants to have a say on something, I think that he will. But I think Marcus Freeman is starting to take more authority over coaching hires, which is smart because he's the head coach. You got to answer for it at the end of the day.
That's true.
All right, next question. Call me Ty. Freeman has hired a lot of guys that he's worked with, mainly from Cincinnati. Who in your mind could be D1 coaches? Will they be his guys or Fickle's? Will they be his guys? It depends. If they come from Notre Dame to get a head coaching job, they're Marcus's guys. That means that's where they were when they got to that position to take that jump. So yeah, they'd be Marcus's guys.
We really want to be honest. Technically, right? If we're talking about Marcus Freeman, most people would consider him, based upon his mentor. If you want to go that far back,
Tressel.
It's Tressel. And for Gino Guidugli, it would be Mark D'Antoni. He was there at Cincinnati, right?
Yeah,
He recruited him to
he
Cincinnati?
played under Rick Minter and Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah,
So
Mark
I
Antonio.
yes,
So
I
Mark
think his
Antonio was the one that recruited him, I believe.
I'm trying to when was Mark was Minter before or after him?
He
Yeah.
wasn't Mentor
So, no,
after him?
he was Minter was before
Okay.
D'Antonio,
Okay.
and so he was recruited by the Minter staff, I believe.
And then kind of developed and played under
Right,
D'Antonio. Yeah.
right. He started 2 years under D'Antonio and 2 years under Minter,
Okay.
I believe.
But I saw he has a relationship that still is very strong with Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah, you saw that video. Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that too, yeah.
So,
Well,
some
it's like
might
Brady
say that's
Quinn,
his, yeah.
right? Played as many years under Ty as he did under Charlie, but who do you
But
think
Charlie is
Brady
his, yeah,
right,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So
Good question. Salty Virginia Peanuts, what is your assessment of Jeff Grimes for the O-line coach? Well, the reality is he's not gonna come for the O-line job. He's an offensive coordinator at Baylor. So he's
yeah,
not going to leave that job to come, and he's a Texas guy, so he's not going to leave Baylor as the OC slash offensive line coach to come to Notre Dame to coach O line coach. He has a good reputation as an O line coach. He's had some like look, all coaches have stops in their resume where they didn't where the results weren't great, right? Like Harry got fired at Tennessee. That obviously wasn't great. And so everybody has those in their background. Actually, Harry's been fired twice in the last 13 years or so because he also got fired from the Bears. So yeah, I just everybody has those, but so there's years where it wasn't as great, and other years where it's been really good. He has a very strong reputation. I do know that. So I think I think he does some good things. I think he does some good things at Baylor, but he's not going to be an option. Not going to be an option. Next question from Tyler Ottinger. I think with all the administration BS going on, Freeman's ability to go get Geno from Fickle in Wisconsin is being overlooked. I think that this is a really important, impressive move. Oh, we haven't overlooked it. I mean, that was what our show was about yesterday, was about the new coaching hire. So, no, I think it's a very good hire. Sean, you guys talked about it, I believe, on your show yesterday
yeah. I
about
think
how
it shows his
recruiting
investment.
reputation is
Yeah,
really good,
really good.
right?
Yeah,
So that's the one thing is you're maintaining. So like Tommy Reese, we thought, especially this last year, did a very good job as an offense coordinator, right? Like it took him some time to kind of get going, but I feel it had more to do with getting more experience, but then also being surrounded by other good recruiters that have your back. That's important. But your OC is still going to be a very good recruiter, and your quarterbacks, you now added a quarterbacks coach is going to be a very good recruiter. So now it's you've got two guys there that are going to do a good job. So
yeah,
along with Dealin and of course Chancey Stuckey. So I would hope that more of his hires have that in mind when it comes to the
and
like coordinators. I can live with them not being great recruiters, be finishers, but position coaches have to be dogs on the recruiting
yeah,
trail.
yeah.
And from everything you guys reported yesterday, Sean, Gino is
I
definitely
I love the fact that Marcus Freeman has made the shift for the coaching combination that he made because it shows two things. He's identified the importance of the quarterback position for this team to get over the hump and the development of the guys that they have currently on the roster and that are coming via the pipeline of recruiting and making sure that they have things in place to make sure that they reach their full potential and become guys at Notre Dame. Because that's what usually happens when you start to see teams take that next step. They start to get guys, whether they're developed at your school or they come via recruiting. And that for me is an investment in the future. That wasn't about Sam Hartman. That was about every other quarterback on the roster and the quarterbacks that aren't on the roster that'll be coming down the line. So I thought that was him identifying one of the biggest points to getting this program to the next level and then investing in that area by going out and getting Gino Gaduli to come in as the quarterback coach and putting him in a combination with Jared Parker. And then, it's interesting because most people were like, man, this is tight end you. The tight ends will be okay.
yeah.
The tight ends will be okay because from a recruiting standpoint, and I can't wait to talk to Ryan about this. The tight ends they have in a 24 class now are not only talking to the tight end coach, they're talking to the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
So that is another that's an advantage. So I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited to see what they can do, particularly in this 24 class moving forward.
Well, they got to get rolling soon because,
Yeah,
look, you've got to hit the ground running.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually more concerned about the defensive recruiting right now than I am the offensive
Oh,
recruiting.
man, wholeheartedly. I agree with you.
Exponentially
I
more
agree with you.
concerned about that. Yeah. Number one, there's a greater foundation, but number two, because of like what you said. 99 problems with BK ain't one. I like the way you changed it on the board actually better. I kind of like that. But 99 problems with BK ain't one says, would you expect to see similarities in terms of scheme to David Cutcliffe offense from Parker? Well, I mean, perhaps. I mean, he's a pro style guy, and when you're pro style, there's certain concepts that kind of carry over from team to team. So perhaps, I think we could. I don't know if I could say enough about the that to go there, Sean. What are your thoughts?
I kind of agree with you, but I just think the system overall is going to be different, right? I think it's going to be a multiple system this year because Tyler Buckner literally is one play from being on the field. So maybe that's something Jared Parker has to do is have an offense to whereas Tyler Buckner is included in that offense. Like they have plays that will benefit both Sam Hartman and Tyler Buckner, and then you have a package for Tyler Buckner if he has to play an extended period of time or has to start because of injury to Sam Hartman. So, but moving forward, the only unicorn really of the group is Tyler Buckner as far as skill set.
Yeah.
Because you think about CJ Carr, Kenny Minchey, they're pretty much is Sam Hartman. That the offense can fit those three just fine. The only package you would add, particularly for a quarterback, would probably be Tyler Buckner.
So I just got to say, Sean, I'm gonna rip my dad when the show's over.
What did he
Love
say
my dad. He called me 3 times.
during the
And so,
show?
like, so I stepped out, like, recently. So I'm thinking, okay, my dad keeps calling me. He knows I'm recording right now. I'm thinking something's wrong. He's got my
Something's wrong.
91-year-old grandma with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Freaking butt dialed me. He's at my nephew's, one of my nieces or nephew's games. He keeps butt dialing me. So yeah, we're gonna have some words. We're gonna have some words when I get off this show.
Oh man.
Like, seriously, it's 2023 and you still don't know how to not butt dial someone on a smartphone? Come on, man.
Do you watch
So
Inside the NBA
no,
by any
no.
chance? So Tuesday night, instead of it's a new crew. It's like Candace Parker, Jamal
Sure.
Crawford, and Shaq, and they were laughing at the fact that Jamal Crawford, maybe your dad needs. Remember the hip clips
Oh
for the
yeah,
phones?
oh
I didn't
yeah.
even know they still made those, but apparently Jamal Crawford still uses one, and his wife was literally begging him to like get rid of it for Valentine's Day. Like she wanted that to be her
Mhm.
Valentine's gift. And I was like, man, I didn't even know they made those for iPhones
Yeah. Man, me neither. I need to
or
get my dad one.
Androids. Yeah, that's what I'm
I need to
saying.
get my
Maybe your
dad
dad
one.
needs one so he
Seriously.
doesn't put it in his back pocket.
Seriously. For real. Goodness gracious. All right. Next, we got one from Salty Virginia Peanuts. Is Dylan McCullough more likely to leave soon, actively being recruited, and is Al Golden less likely to leave soon? His guy did not get the Arizona head coaching job. I don't know about Al Golden. That was obviously an unfortunate turn of events. I don't know what Dylan's doing. Like, honestly, I mean, he's out the Chiefs thing. He's promoting his new book and all that's fine and all that. But it's like, I don't know. I
I'm
don't know.
shocked. I'm shocked at the author, but I'll leave it at that.
Yep. Move on from that one real quick. Yeah.
Mm.
So next one is from so we got next here, Ryan, from 99 Pros BK1. Do you think the complexity of the Reese offense hurt the big game performance? More thinking and more variables coupled with the environment of a night game in Columbus seems likely to me. I I don't see. Here's the thing. I think that was more of a Brian Kelly problem than anything else. I don't think the complexity hurt them against Ohio State. They weren't actually overly complex that game. 2 of the 3 games this year, I thought the offense played pretty well, the exception of 2 turnovers against USC. I mean, they moved the ball
Yeah,
pretty well against USC, and the offense played great against Clemson. I mean, people say, "Oh, the 2 of the touchdowns." Yeah, but the offense played really well against Clemson, right? I mean, they had short fields and lost possessions because of turnovers, like from
dude.
the other team, but the offense played really well that game. They ran for 286 yards against one of the best front sevens in college football and couldn't throw because of
And they
primarily
they
because of the
flipped the
win.
field twice. They
Oh,
flipped the
yes.
field twice.
Yes.
At 2 important times too when the
Yes.
game was still in doubt, like,
So
literally backed up and flipped the field for a
right.
punt. That's huge in a game
But
like that.
here's the counter argument. They weren't as complex this year because of the quarterback.
Exactly.
So, but I think that stuff had as much to do with Brian Kelly as anything, to be completely honest with you. I really do. All right, next question from Jason Smith. Did I hear correct in a previous show that you spoke with a parent of a transfer kid and said if they knew Jared Parker is going to be the OC, they wouldn't have transferred? Yes, I did say that. I did say that. That reminds me, I do want to read this comment here. I think this is good timing for this. So, Ryan, you can take that question down. But yes, I did say that. Uh, so I read a comment. I reached out to a former player and I asked him, talk to me about Jared Parker. And this is what I got. He's because he thought he would be real. He said, just seeing the level of dedication of the game and commitment to his players was a big thing for me. I think he has a great philosophy for the passing game and think our receivers will take a huge, all capitals, huge jump with him as OC, but also has a really good understanding for what we want to do in the run game and how important it is to be dominant up front. And obviously, I think our tight ends will become even more critical position for us. Really big on development and understanding the ins and outs of the game and pre-snap info. I think we'll be much more balanced under him, and I expect Sam Hartman to throw a ton of TDs. Also love the guy, which is why I said I am biased. And then he also said, I asked how the players would respond to him. He goes, players respond great to him. Think he will absolutely be embraced. Definitely think losing Reese and Harry Heastan will be tough. So this isn't a kid that didn't like the two previous coaches, right? Will be tough, but I don't think there's anyone else who I'd be able to rally who I think or anyone else who'd be able to rally the boys in a better way than him. So that was a comment. And I read the part about Harry Heastan and Reese because I didn't want it to come across as like some player that doesn't think that Tommy Reese was good or whatever the case may be, right? It was a guy that did like those coaches, but just thinks Jared Parker can take it to another level is how I read that. So I did want to get that out. That's from a former Notre Dame player who was part of the program this past year. So I wanted to get that out. And I didn't want to say until I got permission from him. So I'm glad I was able to say that. So what do we got next there, Mr. Roberts? Is Tosh Baker an unexpected replacement for Alt or Fisher? An expected replacement. It depends on when those guys leave. If one of them leaves this year, it's possible, certainly. Because Tosh has still got – Tosh has the COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, Tosh still has, I believe, 3 years of eligibility remaining. So 2020 didn't count for him. So technically, Tosh was a redshirt freshman in 22, I mean. Because COVID didn't count. Yeah. And in 2021, he redshirted. So this year, even though he was a third-year guy, he was technically a redshirt freshman. So Tosh still has 3 years of eligibility remaining to play. So, yeah, if Joe Alt leaves after this year, Tosh could still be a 2-year starter for Notre Dame. Certainly. See, next question is from Broke Neck Boy. Who is the worst, best Heisman winners? Let's start with the best, Sean. And that's a hard one. I will say that the most dominant Heisman Trophy the most dominant Heisman Trophy winning season I ever saw, or even is Barry Sanders in 1988, was just elite. The worst Heisman Trophy winner for me is actually pretty easy for me because again, when I answer these questions, I only talk about things that happened kind of in my lifetime. It's Gino Torretta easily is the worst Heisman Trophy winner of all time. He was so mediocre. I thought Eric Crouch should not have been a Heisman Trophy winner the year he did, but he was still a good player though.
That was mine.
Eric Crouch. He was still a really good player though. I mean,
and he paid for it against the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, but his team wasn't that great. But the thing for me with Eric Crouch is people have said, "Oh, look, he wasn't, he threw more interceptions," but like that's the same argument that I've made about Tony Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the guy is playing in that kind of offense, you're not going to throw a bunch of passing touchdowns, and you're going to have, so like the year he won the Heisman, he had 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
Well, he had 1,500 passing yards. Well, look, that's 5 more touchdowns and only one more interception than Tony Rice had when he was a Heisman runner-up in 1989. He was an option quarterback, so that's just going to happen. But the guy also rushed for 1,100 yards and 18 touchdowns and led his team to a championship game when honestly they didn't have a championship caliber team that year, in my opinion, outside of him. So I actually like what he did. I thought Gino Torretta was like maybe the 7th or 8th best player on that offense for Miami. Eric Crouch was at least the best player that Nebraska had that year, in my opinion. Yeah. So that's why Gino Torretta. I mean, come on, man, like that guy. Oh my gosh. I mean, the leading rush for Nebraska, it was Darren Diedrich. So I mean, like Tommy Frazier was a great player, but he was playing with like Amon Green and Lawrence Phillips. I mean, he had a great Eric Cross playing with Darren Diedrich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I actually respected him. I didn't think he should have won the Heisman that year, but I still think he was at least a good player. Gino Toretta, in my opinion, winning the Heisman Trophy over Marshall Faulk and Garrison Hurst and Reggie Brooks is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, I got no respect for Gino Toretta, and I just thought he was a very mediocre player, Sean. Like just a very mediocre player in college. I never understood that Heisman
And
Trophy.
maybe not perform, but the Jason White,
Yeah,
one for me was,
yeah.
yeah. I
There's been some
agree
bad
with that.
Heisman winners, but yeah, that's another one. That's a good one. What year did Jason White win it? Was it 2004?
2003 was Jason
Okay.
White.
Almost.
Yeah,
Who were the other Heisman Trophy voting? Who were the other
he had
candidates
what?
for that? Heisman Trophy voting for 2003. Let me
Let me
look
see.
this one up. You had, oh my gosh, he won it over Larry Fitzgerald, and
Hmm.
then number 2 was Eli Manning. So yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that year that Larry Fitzgerald, he was a fun. He had 20. Remember that year he had 22 receiving touchdowns,
Yeah,
had 92 catches for 670 yards. He was a beast. And then Eli Manning was third. So yeah, I'd have given it to Larry Fitzgerald that year. If you're going to give it to an offensive guy, sure. There's some interesting quarterbacks on that list. So Jason White wins the Heisman. Here's the other quarterbacks in the top 10 that year, Sean. Eli Manning was third. Matt Leinart was sixth. Phillip Rivers was seventh. Ben Roethlisberger was ninth.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 2000 with Chris Winkie is. Uh, I mean, when
Yeah.
you look at the fact that LaDainian Tomlinson was in that
Yep. He
conversation,
finished fourth.
yeah,
Um, Winkie at least had good numbers. I mean, he threw for a mess of yards that year, man. And he threw for 4,000 yards in an era where teams weren't really throwing for 4,000 yards yet. You
yeah.
know,
Then went out and got stomped in the
yeah. I mean, he was
championship.
30 years old. So
That's true.
that helped. That certainly helped. But
That's
that's
true.
another year. Yeah, Josh Heupel was second,
Drew
which I
Brees
never
was
understood.
third.
He had
Yeah,
20 touchdowns. I just hate it when guys are like Josh Heupel was not Oklahoma's best player that year. Quentin Griffith was.
definitely.
I've never liked that. Just the quarterbacks winning it, and it's like, dude, he's not even the best player on his team. And then third was Drew Brees. Fourth was LaDainian Tomlinson. Fifth was Damian Anderson. Remember, he had a great year for Ohio State that year. And then Michael Vick was sixth. Santana
Damian
Moss seventh.
Anderson. I think Damian Anderson went to Northwestern.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Ohio State.
I don't know why I said Ohio State.
Yeah, it was Northwestern.
Northwestern. Yeah, he had a really good year. Michael Vick, sixth. Santana Moss, seventh. Marquise Tuiasosopo, eighth. Ken Simonton, ninth. And then Rudy Johnson, 10th. Santana Moss made me think of something. I think it was Pro Football Focus. Somebody put something out, and it was a picture of like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I think Jameson Williams. And they're like, name me a better receiving core. And I was like, everybody's like, Bama 2 years ago. But I'm like, people sleep on that Miami receiving core that had Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne, and Andre Johnson. That was a
Mm,
nuts receiving core, man. Nuts receiving core.
mm. Yeah,
So,
you can ask Eric Crouch and
yeah,
the 2000 Cornhuskers about that wide receiver core.
absolutely right. Absolutely right. All right, what's the next question we got here? Nathan Milton with a super chat. Thank you, sir. Considering the high likelihood of a dual threat quarterback gets injured and their low return of investment, should teams pursue traditional quarterbacks over more talented drop back prospects? I don't think it's a high likelihood that dual threat quarterbacks get hurt. I don't think that's a high likelihood at all. Look, we've seen drop back quarterbacks who can't stay healthy. I mean, that's just reality of it. Some guys are just prone for injury. Some guys are not. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with the premise.
And
I
then
think you got to
this
recruit what fits your offense, man. Like that. That's reality
what
for me.
is I don't think the traditional see this comes from me. This is about understanding that as the game changes, the young kids that watch the game change as well.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think you're gonna see a lot of traditional drop back quarterbacks. I mean, Justin Herbert's not a traditional drop back
Right.
quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback. He's just not being used in that way. And maybe that's one of the faults of the Chargers not getting him out of the pocket more, not getting him on the move, not giving him a chance to use his legs. Josh Allen is a dual threat quarterback, right? Patrick Mahomes is a dual threat quarterback, dude. He's just getting to the point from a mature standpoint where he can literally lock in the pocket and break you down, right? But he wants to get outside the pocket and beat you, with big plays and make the spectacular plays. He's really maturing to the point where he can beat you from in the pocket, which he did a great job of this year. So I think just the game itself is evolving to the point where the top two quarterbacks next year, Drake May and Caleb Williams, are those guys want to run and impact the game with their legs. So it's like the NBA. Everybody grows up wanting to shoot now because they've been watching Steph Curry, and that's what's going to be coming through the ranks. I don't think the
Right.
traditional Johnny Unitas,
Which is why
Peyton
it's
Manning just
stupid when people
drop
try
back
to
quarterback is
compare.
going to be there.
That's why it's stupid when people try to compare 3-point shooters from today to 3-point shooters from the 80s. It's a
Yeah,
completely different era.
yeah,
Completely different era.
yeah,
And if you're just going, well, this guy shot this many and that guy shot that many, well, it's a lame argument because the game has changed, right?
yeah.
That's like saying that Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than like 95% of the quarterbacks that played in the 80s because he's got more passing yards.
Hmm.
No. But here's the thing, Sean. What you're saying is true for a time. Here's how it always happens.
Hmm.
There gets a point in time where kind of everybody has a dual threat quarterback. And then some team, and then NFL defenses have to adjust to dual threat quarterbacks. And then some team is going to run like a power offense, or some team's going to get a drop back quarterback,
Yeah,
and that type of player is more rare. And how to defend that is more rare. And then that team's going to get good again. And the next, Peyton Manning ish type of guy is going to come along, and all of a sudden he starts winning, and then it cycles back.
yeah,
That's how the NFL is, right? It's just the reality of it. Let a team go win. Let a team like the Titans win a Super Bowl, and then start seeing how people, and Derrick Henry run for 2,000 yards that year, and let's see how people put the value on a running back in the draft. It's been
yeah,
like that for my whole life. It cycles, right?
yeah,
It cycles. It's sometimes some cycles take longer than others, and when it comes back, it's in a different form,
yeah.
right?
The
But
game itself. I'm
right,
speaking just naturally. See,
yeah,
you're talking about the game itself. I'm
yeah,
talking about just watching the game and
yeah,
going out and trying to emulate.
right, and
That's
that's
a
what I'm
s-
saying.
that's
That's
a
what
six that's a
because
6, 7-year-old kid
right,
right now that's going to be emulating the
right.
quarterbacks they see now.
I mean, that goes back to the '80s. I mean, you have how many kids grew up in the '80s and '90s wearing number 7
Yeah,
because they wanted to play like John Elway, or
yeah,
number 16 because they wanted to play like Joe Montana. I mean, however the style was, right? I
yeah,
think to your point now, there's so many more of those types of players. And my point is, it's the reverse of what was back then. Where back then you wanted to play like John Elway because he was so different than everybody
hmm,
else. My point is, you're gonna have all these guys are dual threat quarterbacks, right? That they
yeah,
want to emulate that. But then's gonna come along the next Peyton Manning type of player, and then all those kids who can't run, like the other kids,
yeah,
that's who I'm emulating. And then all of a sudden, teams start looking for that again. So it's a little bit of both for me. It's a little bit of both because once something becomes not unique anymore, it's like, okay, well, everybody's doing that. Now let me do the different thing that I can do to stand out. And that's why it's so cyclical, right? I mean, we're going to see a time in the NFL again where they're going to run the ball more. I'm not saying it's going to look like it did back in the '80s, but they're going to run the ball more because now that teams are so geared towards the pass, it's to your advantage to run the ball more. That's how football's always been, and it'll always remain that way. It'll just look different when it cycles back. It won't look like you're not going to like run the 1985 Chicago Bears defense, but there's going to be cycles that where that type of philosophy-ish type of thing comes back, right?
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I'm referring to.
yeah,
But you're a lot of it, to your point though, Sean, with kids comes back to who do you emulate? Well, right
yeah.
now kids are trying to emulate Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen and those type of guys, not Aaron Rodgers,
And then
right?
look,
Or Tom Brady,
John Elway was a dual threat quarterback. He
right?
just wasn't used that way
Right. Early in his career he was,
early in his career. But
yeah,
it's like
before the knee
he's
injuries, yeah,
like John Elway could come into the day right now and plug into what Jalen Hurts was doing and do the exact same thing.
but better,
I'm not here to debate that. You're
but
right,
better.
but it's like, but I'm saying that's
That's
just
not
the
a debate,
beauty of that's. It's
right?
really saying that they didn't fully use quarterbacks that were talented in that manner to the
100%.
full capabilities back then
Well, that
because
was
of the
one of the big
game.
that was one of the big
Yeah,
beats with Dan Reeves is like you got this great player and you're not using him until the
yeah,
fourth quarter,
Yeah.
And then, like that's where a lot of John Elway's athletic plays came from, or when they'd fall behind,
Yeah.
So Ryan's
Yeah.
trying to get fired today. You see his comment down there? Like he wants to get fired today. So
That is a fireable offense.
yeah, that is he said,
But
Ryan
those,
said, Jalen Hurts and John Elway were basically the same
but
player.
no,
Like that.
we were literally, and Ryan could attest to this. Yeah, I promise you, the most interested person or people watching the Super Bowl on Sunday were Richardson and his agents.
Right.
Because if Philly won the Super Bowl with that offense
Yeah.
and that player, you better believe he was going to skyrocket in the NFL draft
Mhm.
easily, right? Because teams were like, "Oh, so we can take a talent like that
Right.
and win the Super Bowl." Oh, absolutely. They were the ones sitting there watching, saying, "Man, Jalen, you need to win this.
Right.
You need to win this." But no, they literally got to the Super Bowl with a college offense,
Right.
like literally, and
Yeah.
it's crazy how college football, well, really is high school. It's kind of the inverse, right? Because high
Mhm.
school invades college, then college invades the NFL schematically with all of these new schemes and everything. You know, it's kind of weird the way it works.
Yep. All right, we gotta wrap up here soon, so we gotta get some more questions.
That Will
Uh,
Levis comment, you're bold
yeah.
as hell.
Joey Smith asks, what do the grad transfers do once they step on campus? Do they have to take a class, or are they just hanging out? No, they have classes. Hashtag 757. Yeah, they have to take classes. They just don't take as many classes normally,
I think,
depending on how serious they are about getting their master's degree.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
Thomas Harper mentioned that he doesn't start until the fall when he met with the media.
Okay.
Yeah, he mentioned he doesn't start until the fall.
So he may just be hanging out then.
Yeah,
Yeah, he just may be
yeah.
hanging out then.
He said, "Yeah, I'm working on my grad, but I actually don't start
Yeah.
until the fall." I
Yeah.
don't know what he might be doing something else. You know something that was weird Malik was telling me? Like they're not allowed to just like walk over to the Goob and just work out
Still?
or indoor. He said that was his experience.
Oh yeah, that was true for
He
Notre
was
Dame.
like,
That's
"Yo,"
why.
he's like, "Yeah, they would kick us out." He's like, "We couldn't. I couldn't wake up at 1, 2 in the
Yeah.
morning
Mm.
with my receivers and
Well, I mean, I know there's certain times where the facilities are closed, like at two
yeah,
o'clock in the morning. But
yeah.
no, that was the issue that we had is like the times for the gyms opening like
It was
were
really
very
slim.
limited, which is why
Yeah,
kids were getting local member.
yeah.
Like I've heard stories about kids like coaches will come in the morning and the kids in the weight room getting extra work in, that kind of thing. I've
Mm,
seen that before, but it's not like it was when Malik was here. That was a Paul Longo thing.
okay.
So yes,
Yeah,
that was,
yeah.
and
I'm
that's
glad
part of
it's
what we
I'm
criticized. Yeah,
glad
that was
it's changed. Then,
definitely criticized.
yeah.
All right, this next question from Michael S. Thank you for the super chat, Michael. Is the defensive coaching staff set for this year? What might change? I mean, for now it's set. I think analysts and they hired the GA Max Bulla, who's going to coach linebackers. You might have some analyst turnover or not, but for now the defensive staff is set. Yes,
I
absolutely.
like him as a coach. I do.
Yes,
I've
yeah,
heard a lot
good
of I've
pickup.
heard a lot of good things about Max Bullock
Good
as a
pickup for
coach.
sure.